right, it is preparing to go live, so we should be up shortly.
Good morning. Welcome to the April 9th, 2025 meeting of the Natural Resources Board, meeting here in Madison, Wisconsin. Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance to our great nation. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Thank you. I'll now call our meeting of the Natural Resources Board to order. We will have both in-person and virtual appearances today. And I have a few reminders and introductory comments before we go to the agenda, so bear with. Please turn off phones and any other devices that may interrupt the meeting. And please minimize background noise. Participants online, please make sure you are muted and your video is turned off until your item is announced. And note, there's sometimes a delay in the broadcast and it's easy to talk over one another, and I will demonstrate that at some point in the meeting. Our meetings are televised live via YouTube. We welcome and thank all viewers for joining us, and records of our meetings are available for review on the DNR website under Natural Resources Board Briefs of Action. Direct public involvement and open, transparent meetings are the foundation for how this board has operated for over 50 years and for how we intend to operate today. Our Natural Resources Board discussions and decision-making are transparent to all, and public testimony is very welcome at every regularly scheduled Natural Resource Board meeting. To ensure fair and equal time for all, please limit your public testimony to 3 minutes per speaker. We have a light system here as a reminder, and when the yellow light goes on, you're down to 30 seconds, and I'd ask you to try and bring your comments to closure. If you stray into the red zone and exceed 3 minutes, I will try and remind you either by raising my hand or saying something. And if you can, please, again, bring your comments to a close at 3 minutes. I would like to, as always, thank Secretary Karen Yun, and your leadership team for your support of the board and your commitment to enhance collaboration between the department, the board, and the citizens that we serve. Thank you. And also a thanks to our presenters, the DNR Information Technology, Office of Communications, General Counsel, and all support staff that make these meetings possible. Your time is valuable, and we very much appreciate your support. And I always individually recognize Ashley Bistel, the board liaison. Ashley is the public's contact, the primary contact for communications with the board. And it's an opportunity here to connect a name and a face and a voice all into one person. Ashley gives us tremendous support, and again, is the primary contact for the public in board communications. Thank you, Ashley. Lastly, I thank all the employees, the citizen volunteers, and conservation partners of the Department of Natural Resources for your commitment and tireless work to protect and enhance our natural resources and to serve all citizens of our great state. Board members, any questions or comments? Hearing none, Ashley, please call the roll.
Robin Schmidt,
Present.
Lucy West,
Present.
Rachel Baresa,
Present.
Douglas,
Present.
Deb Dash,
Present.
Patty Shock,
Present.
and Bill Smith.
Present. We have a quorum today, so we'll be able to go on with our business. Item 1B, Secretary's remarks.
Great. Thank you very much, Bill and the board. Really appreciate the time you take to come here into Madison and meet with us today and provide us with the advice and counsel that's so valuable to us. I just wanted to take a few minutes to just tell you what I've been doing for the last 6 weeks since the last time we convened, although we've had some individual conversations and that's been great. One is that I've had a huge focus on meeting with legislators across in the Capitol here. Just as meet and greets, but also to hear from them about their priorities, and really also take the opportunity to explain to them some of the important proposals that we heard about from Maggie Hutter in the last meeting around our budget priorities, things like PFAS, Revitalize Wisconsin, Knowles-Nelson stewardship, et cetera, but just a lot of good proposals and investments that we hope to see here in the department over the next coming months. Also got an opportunity to join the governor at State of the Tribes. I know a couple of the members here were here. I think that's a really important event. It was a packed house in the Capitol, which I think shows a lot of engagement between us and the tribes, us as a state government. And I've been also trying to reach out to all the chairmen and chairwomen and presidents of the different tribes and build strong relationships there as I continue my time here. And the last thing I'll just mention is I got the opportunity to go with Bart Sponseller, who's in the audience here, to ECOS, which is the Environmental Council of the state. So my counterparts in the air and water side of the house that work, as commissioners or directors or secretaries in other states to really hear and collaborate in a very nonpartisan, bipartisan way on the issues that we face as just people who execute missions across the states. Very common issues, PFAS, permitting, disaster preparedness. So I'm learning a ton from them, and I hope to have an engagement here on sort of some of the things that they're doing in their states, might be applicable here, might not work here, but just a really good conversation there. So just wanted to let you know a little bit about what I've been doing, keeping busy. It's been a whirlwind and real enjoyment. And just thanks to our staff too, who have been doing a ton of work to set up this board meeting and just across the board to serve the mission and the people of the state. And that's it.
Thank you. I'm tempted to ask you what you're doing with your spare time.
Just work and family.
It's got to be a whirlwind. Okay, we'll move on to item 1C, approval of the agenda for April 9, 2025. Are there any changes to the agenda?
I'd like to make a few adjustments to the agenda. First, I would like to request that item 4D, which is the approval of the department recommendations for the FY26 Laboratory Accreditation Program fee adjustment, and item 6A, the Laboratory of the Year Award, and item 6B, the Rebecca Wallace Award, be eligible immediately following item 3 to accommodate the friends and families attending for the award
All right, very thoughtful. Thank you. Are there any other changes to the agenda? Hearing none, a motion would be in order to approve the April agenda as discussed, as adjusted.
So moved.
Got a motion to approve from Robin. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second from Rachel. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. We have an agenda. Thank you. We'll move on to item 2, the consent agenda. We have 2 items there. 2A is approval of the brief of action from our February 26, 2025 meeting. Item 2B is acknowledgement of a donation from the Friends of Governor Dodge State Park. They're donating $25,000 to Governor Dodge State Park. This donation of $25,000 will be used to support general operational expenses at the property. I also would like to take a moment. We had a request from a representative of the Friends Group, a lady named Jean Warrior, who very much wanted to come and make comments this morning. She called in sick, unfortunately. I'm going to offer her the courtesy to read a very short written statement that she sent that she had hoped to give to you personally. Again, this is from Jean Warrior, representing the Friends of Governor Dodge State Park. The Friends are pleased to be able to assist Governor Dodge State Park with this maintenance and operations gift. It will provide short-term help in addressing the chronic budgetary shortfalls that make it more difficult each year to keep machinery maintained, staff paid, and the park ready to welcome over 600,000 visitors annually. So my comment back is thank you very much, Jean and the Friends, for this generous gift. With that, could we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Sure.
Got a motion to approve from Doug. Is there a second?
Second.
Did that come from Deb?
Deb, yes.
Okay. My hearing is not always good, so hang in there, keep me on the straight rail. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you. With that, we will move on to item 4D. Item 4A and B have been moved up in the agenda to go right after 3. So we'll start out with item 4D, and then we'll return to the agenda after we deal with these other items. 4D is the approval of the department recommendations for fiscal year 26 laboratory accreditation program fee adjustment. Jana Xian, Certification Services Manager. Welcome, Jana.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Chairman Smith, Secretary Hung, and board members. My name is Jana Sheehan. I'm the Certification Services Section Manager in the Program of Environmental Analysis and Sustainability. Today, the program is requesting board approval of a fee adjustment to fund the laboratory certification program. To provide a little bit of background, the administrative code requires us to annually adjust the fees to be able to fund the laboratory certification program. The budget is reviewed annually by our Laboratory Certification Standards Review Council, followed by an approval by the Natural Resources Board. The fiscal year 26 budget and the fee adjustment was reviewed by the council in January of 2025, and the council recommends that the board approve the annual fee adjustment. The council is made up of various lab sector representatives. The members and their affiliations are provided on the slide. There are a total of 321 laboratories that are accredited by our program. As you can see here, the graph shows the number of laboratories by type. The program is requesting board approval of a 5.6% fee adjustment increase. This table shows a comparison of average renewal fees to maintain accreditation within our program for an average wastewater treatment plant and commercial laboratory for fiscal year 25 and fiscal year 26. This graph shows the average renewal fees for a commercial laboratory compared to other state programs. As you can see here, our fees remain competitive to other state programs that are similar. Similarly, this graph shows how we compare to other state lab accreditation programs for an average wastewater treatment plant renewal fee. Wisconsin continues to remain one of the less expensive accreditation programs. At this time, I request board approval of the annual fee adjustment. Chairman Smith, Secretary Hyun, and board members, are there any questions?
We have no public appearances, so are there any questions from the board? Comments? Robin, go ahead.
The only comment I would make is it's great to see that this is a self-sustaining program and
Yes.
that the fees are very much in line with our neighbors. And thank you for all the work that you've done putting this together.
Yeah, and thank you so much for meeting with me earlier. Yeah.
Other questions or comments? Hearing none, could we have a motion?
I'd move approval.
We have a motion to approve from Robin. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second from Marcy. Any further comments or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Jonna.
Thank you.
And you're up for the next item
Yep,
as well.
I'm still here, and this
This
one
the
is way more
celebration
fun.
Following the decision.
Yes.
Presentation of the Laboratory of the Year Award.
Yes, it is an honor to be able to share with you this achievement today. So again, good morning, Chairman Smith, Secretary Hyun, and board members. My name is Jana Sheehan. I'm the Certification Services Section Manager in the Program of Environmental Analysis and Sustainability. Once a year, the Laboratory Certification Program recognizes a laboratory for their outstanding work. There are a total of 228 industrial and municipal laboratories within our program. Laboratories are audited once every 3 years, and every year I ask our 4 auditors to nominate a lab that they found to be outstanding that year. I'm excited to announce that this year's Laboratory of the Year is
Drum roll.
Hudson Wastewater Utilities. There are several members of the Hudson Wastewater Utilities team here with us today who will be accepting the award. The laboratory was nominated by our auditor, Patricia Dorflinger, and here are some highlights that I'll read from her nomination letter. One of the significant reasons why the Hudson Wastewater Utilities Laboratory is successful because the lab director and 4 operators are a well-trained, organized, forward-thinking, and communication-driven team. Each team member is knowledgeable in all aspects of the laboratory, which helps us ensure that high-quality data is generated and used to run the plant at its optimum. The lab has an excellent quality system in place, which helps them continue to excel. Lab staff find creative and innovative solutions to common laboratory problems. For example, the lab found that using a baby bottle holder to dry BOD bottles eliminated method blank contamination problems and was a more cost-effective alternative to purchasing standard laboratory racks to hold the BOD bottles. The staff at Hudson Wastewater Utilities have a positive impact on the community and work closely with local schools. The laboratory organizes tours for students with a hope to inspire future operators. They focus on educating students about the water treatment process, the difference in quality pre-treatment and post-treatment, and the different type of career opportunities that are available within the industry. They're also happy to be a helping hand to neighboring communities if needed. For example, the city of River Falls was unable to maintain their sewers because their jet truck was out for repairs. The staff at Hudson Wastewater Utilities added the many miles of sewer to maintain from the city of River Falls to their workload without hesitation. So with your permission, Chairman Smith and Secretary Hyun, I ask you to please present the Laboratory of the Year Award to Hudson Wastewater Utilities. And we've got a team over here.
We have a spokesperson.
We have a spokesperson. Would you like to share any words or comments?
I just want to say thank you. Really appreciate this award. Yeah, thanks to the staff. Thanks for Patty. Thanks for all the natural resources people. You know, providing clean water is very important to us. And yeah, thanks.
And I'll step out of the way.
If you guys actually want to come back here, we have a photo.
A better backdrop? Everybody online is going, what are they doing it on about?
Oh, yeah.
I can't imagine what Hudson deals with the
Test,
population.
test.
Incredible. Yeah. Here you go. That's the P. You guys are not gonna be seated together in future meetings.
Deb is a teacher here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, put the teacher in the corner. Yeah.
Just never mind over there.
Yeah. Come back and haunt you.
People that wear Marcy masks and.
Yes.
So we have a new guest here in every public.
Yeah, exactly. I'll just pick one topic every month.
Yeah, she's never left us. I have a question.
Yeah.
Pick a short meeting and just keep asking questions.
Yeah. As long as I left my home. Okay, make sure you guys get a big raise. Yeah.
Great guys doing a wonderful job for public up in Hudson and all the visitors. Very nice to meet them and nice to recognize their work. We'll move on to item 6B, the Rebecca Wallace Memorial Award. The Rebecca Wallace Award is given to a DNR employee nominated for making the greatest contribution toward either the improvement of relationships with external partner and organizations on environmental quality issues or the mentoring of staff. The Natural Resources Board created the award as a memorial to Rebecca Wallace, who lost her life with her husband in an automobile accident in 1997. Rebecca was an 18-year veteran of the department who was known for her dedication to her work and her ability to bring people together to solve problems. I believe we have a video that's going to be played regarding the award.
The Rebecca Wallace Memorial Award was established to honor the memory of Rebecca Wallace and to recognize an employee who has enriched department staff through mentorship or strengthened relationships with external partners on environmental quality issues. Rebecca Wallace distinguished herself as a tireless advocate for the improvement and protection of Wisconsin's water resources. Her positive disposition, ability to forge partnerships, and dedication to mentoring and supporting her staff were unparalleled. As a mother of 3, she set the bar for having a positive work-life balance and was active in her local community of Lake Mills.
She could accomplish things that were very difficult to do.
You always felt that you could talk to her at any level.
You felt that she cared about you and wanted you to be a better person.
She had a great vision for where to take things and recognize, where non-point source watershed
We're having a few
programs were
technical
and where they
issues with
needed
the
to be in
video.
the
We're going to
future.
go ahead and move through the presentation, and maybe we'll play this a
Rebecca
little bit
began her
later,
career
and
with the
maybe not.
department in 1970.
Sounds good. I'll take it from here, Bill. As we honor Becky's contributions to this agency, I want to recognize the outstanding group of nominees for this prestigious award. All of the nominees stand out for their own work and commitment to the DNR mission. The nominees include Andy Barta, Andy Polios, Jesse Jensen, Kristen Hart, Mike Sorge, Missy Van Landit, Paul Cunningham, and Shaylee Pfeiffer. At this time, I would like to present Shaylee Pfeiffer with the 2024 Rebecca Wallace Award. Shaylee is a natural resource specialist in the drinking water and groundwater water use program. Shaylee started her career with the DNR in 2004 as the water resource management specialist. Many in the conservation community benefited from Becky Wallace's positive influence through her establishment of partnerships and mentoring of staff. This is also where Shaylee really shines. This honor recognizes Shaylee's outstanding contributions to water resource management and her commitment to fostering collaborative partnerships throughout the Great Lakes regions and beyond. She possesses a unique ability to reach people at all levels. She has the unique ability to explain complex technical issues in a way that is understandable and allows for thoughtful decisions on these issues. Her ability to communicate and build relationships has allowed her to excel at being a leader and consistently sought after for her coordination of complex projects. Shaylee has played a critical role in advancing Wisconsin's water resource policies, particularly through her leadership on the implementation of the Great Lakes Compact and the City of Waukesha's historic transition to the Great Lakes water supply. Her leadership extends beyond Wisconsin, as she also represents the state on the International Joint Commission's Water Quality Board and has been a key figure in regional and national discussions on water policy. The quality of Shaylee's work and the way she conducts herself has left a lasting impression on everyone she has worked with. Shaylee has served as a guide and role model for colleagues, offering support and insight to emerging professionals in the water use field. When Shaylee isn't working, she's skillfully balancing her career and personal life. She's always encouraging her family and peers to engage with Wisconsin's natural landscapes through outdoor adventure, such as camping trips to Rock Island or paddling excursions down the Wisconsin River. In summary, Shaylee is highlighted as a proven leader and exemplifies the importance of cultivating successful working relationships among her colleagues, external partners, and the public. Congratulations, Shaylee.
Shaylee, could you come forward, please, to the podium, and so everybody can say hello, and you have a chance to make some brief remarks if you'd like. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Chairman Smith, Secretary, members of the board, and members of Rebecca Wallace's family, I'm honored to receive this award today. Rebecca Wallace was a remarkable person. I hope we get to see the video because it really is inspirational. And it's a privilege to be recognized in her memory and in the company of the others who have received this award. I thank Rebecca Wallace's family for being here to celebrate her legacy. I don't know if they are here.
There they are.
It's really nice to see you here. Thank you for. I'm grateful to my parents who gave me so much encouragement, instilled in me the idea that life is an adventure and a challenge to be met with joy and gratitude. I'm grateful to my husband, Keith, and my children, Senna, Treva, and Oren, who are supportive of my work, patient listeners to my work stories, and happy participants in our camping and travel adventures. I thank the nominating committee and those who wrote such kind letters about me. A special thank you goes to my supervisor, Adam Freihofer, Adam's a champion for all his supporting balance with our personal lives. I also want to recognize the teams that I work with in water use, the Drinking Water and Groundwater Bureau, Legal Services, Office of Great Waters, and across the department. All these colleagues are inspiring to me. This award has been an opportunity for me to reflect on my career so far, and overwhelmingly it's the people and the lessons I've learned from supervisors and colleagues that stand out and guide me. I'm grateful to Todd Ames, Chuck Ledeen, Bruce Baker, who first gave me the opportunity to work at the Wisconsin DNR. Their mentorship gave me inspiration into what's possible in environmental policy. Most memorably, Chuck Ledeen once told me that we are lucky to be chosen to work on the hard problems that have not yet been solved. And while I don't relish those hard problems every day, I do value that reminder of the responsibility that comes with the privilege of having been chosen to work for the DNR and serve the state of Wisconsin in various capacities in the Great Lakes region. I'm grateful to my former supervisor, Eric Ebersberger, whose commitment to hard work, good humor, and probing questions left a lasting impression on me. Finally, I want to reference the Great Lakes Compact itself. This is an agreement intended to collectively protect the waters of the Great Lakes Basin. My career has been centered on this document, and it's a reminder that big new policy is possible, including the idea that what seems improbable sometimes happens, that details can matter a lot and are worth putting time into, and that relationships among people and the natural world we aim to protect are paramount. Thank you again for the honor of the Rebecca Wallace Award.
We have some additional speakers for the award presentation. Shaylee mentioned her supervisor, Adam, and he's next. Adam Freihofer, Program Manager. Welcome, Adam.
Good morning. Thank you. All right. Good morning, Chair Smith, Secretary Hoon, and members of the board. I don't see Shaylee get choked up very often, so I think that gives you an idea of what that means to her and what this award means to her and this department. It is an honor to be here today to celebrate Shaylee Pfeiffer as the recipient of the Rebecca Wallace Award. I would like to first thank those that have supported Shaylee's nomination from across the Upper Midwest and Great Lakes region, including leaders from the Upper Mississippi River Basin Association, the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Governors and Premiers, the Great Lakes Indian Fish and Wildlife Commission, the Waukesha Water Utility, and so many current and past DNR leaders. There were a lot of people that supported her nomination, and I'm grateful to each one of them. I've had the privilege of working alongside Shaylee for over a decade in the water use section, and in that time, I've witnessed firsthand her clear, forward-thinking vision to every project, combined with an unwavering commitment to Wisconsin's waters. When the Great Lakes Compact Agreement was established, Shaylee embraced the challenge of implementing this new and untested program. Her leadership was instrumental in Wisconsin's successful implementation of the compact, and her contributions simply cannot be overstated. When I started my position in 2016, I received some sage advice. Listen and trust Shaylee. That was it. They said, here are the keys. Good luck. That advice was spot on. Shaylee combines technical expertise with exceptional ability to engage with diverse people, policies, and perspectives. Her capacity to develop thoughtful plans to address the complexities that many overlook is something I've come to rely on time and time again. Simply put, Shaylee has moved efforts forward and kept me out of trouble. Since the passage of the compact in 2008, Wisconsin has been at the forefront of implementation, navigating numerous legal and policy challenges. Review of projects like the Waukesha and Racine diversions were improved because of the relationships, the trust, and the open dialogue that Shaylee maintains. From DNR staff and attorneys to governor's offices, tribal representatives, and other groups across the Great Lakes region. Watching Shaylee in action is like witnessing a masterclass in communication. Her ability to bring people along and respond to questions with poise, even under intense pressure, has been invaluable to this agency. In addition to her work on the compact, she has brought her expertise to bring people together to address water quantity issues across the Mississippi River Basin and co-chaired the Great Lakes Science Strategy, further demonstrating her influence and leadership on water resources issues. Perhaps, and just as importantly, Shaylee has also taught me the true meaning of work-life balance. Her devotion to her family, her outdoor experiences she creates for her children, her ability to be efficient and intentional with her time at work have shown us the power of being effective and present in every aspect of your life. Shaylee's career has been defined by communication, collaboration, and an unwavering commitment to her work, family, and community, attributes that Becky Wallace valued. It is a privilege to celebrate Shaylee's achievements today, and I appreciate the agency's support and acknowledgement of her service. Thank you so much.
Our next speaker is Tim Cook. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you, Chair Smith, Secretary Young, and members of the board. It is my privilege to serve as DLT sponsor of the Rebecca Wallace Award here for the past few years, along with Mike Thompson, Secretary's Director of Southeast Region. Mike's sends his regrets he couldn't be here today, but I'm happy to extend some additional gratitudes beyond the hearty congratulations to Shaylee's well-deserved reward. First off is Susie Hossider. Susie has become sort of the department's champion of the Rebecca Wallace Award over the past number of years. I think it was noted that Rebecca passed away in 1997. I was hired in 2001, and really many of our staff now have been hired after Rebecca has passed away. And Susie's really taken that baton and really run with it. And I just, on behalf of all departments and the members of the committee, just a big hearty thank you to Susie. Susie is great at what she does. She keeps us on track. And, Susie, when I first started with the Rebecca Wallace Award, something that Susie said really resonated with me. And she said, I never had an opportunity to meet Rebecca, but I really felt like I've gotten to know Rebecca over the years. And I feel that way. And Susie has done, I think, such a great job with working with the committee, helping to revise our processes. She always brings it back to that North Star of how does this better reflect the legacy of Rebecca. So thank you, Susie, for that. Secondly, a big thank you to the committee. Robin was the chair, the board member that served on the committee. It contained members, past award recipients, other people throughout the department. And there was just a really great dialogue, such thoughtful discussion. And we had a really tough job, I think, as committee members, looking at some really strong applicants, incredible letters of support from inside the agency, outside the agency. So thank you, committee members, for your active engagement and really thoughtful discussion. Number two is I do hope we get to see this video, but a big thanks to OC. We did see it the past couple of years. But I think it really does a great job of encapsulating the legacy of Rebecca. We have contributors, Marianne Lowndes retired. Other people in the department have contributed to this video. So we'll be sure to share a copy of this with board members if they haven't seen it, and we'll make it part of the public record as well. And then to the board, thank you for making this a priority. This is a really important award. I think we see how much it means to me, how much it means to Shaylee. So appreciate the board's continued commitment to continuing the legacy of Rebecca Wallace and making this a priority for the department. And then finally, I just wanted to recognize the family. I know one of Rebecca's sons is unable to join us, but I know Mitch has joined us. So thank you, Mitch, for joining us. And we're just honored to be able to continue to honor your mother's legacy. So thanks, Mitch.
Tim, thank you in particular for your recognition of the family. I've been here in other years, and they just religiously show up to continue to honor the legacy of your mother, and we appreciate that very much. It's a special part of this award, and your participation is really appreciated. Thank you. Okay, with that, I've been informed that the video is ready. So let's play the video.
In 1998, the Rebecca Wallace Memorial Award was established to honor the memory of Rebecca Wallace and to recognize an employee who has enriched department staff through mentorship or strengthened relationships with external partners on environmental quality issues. Rebecca Wallace distinguished herself as a tireless advocate for the improvement and protection of Wisconsin's water resources. Her positive disposition, ability to forge partnerships, and dedication to mentoring and supporting her staff were unparalleled. As a mother of 3, she set the bar for having a positive work-life balance and was active in her local community of Lake Mills.
She could accomplish things that were very difficult to do.
You always felt that you could talk to her at any level.
You felt that she cared about you and wanted you to be a better person.
She had a great vision for where to take things and recognize, where non-point source watershed programs were and where they needed to be in the future.
How do you get to clean water? That was Becky's bottom line.
Rebecca began her career with the department in 1979 as an environmental engineer in the Bureau of Water Quality in Madison. She transitioned to the municipal wastewater section before being appointed unit supervisor of the non-point source technical support team. Rebecca would lead her staff in this role for 3 years before being promoted to chief of the non-point source and land management section.
As we came in as county conservationists, it was a challenge to have input into the conservation national and state programs. With Becky in particular, it became a cooperative effort.
She set a standard for this partnership. That's what was really remarkable to me about having her as a partner. She knew how to build trust, and so she could build things that others couldn't.
Rebecca valued everyone she collaborated with, especially her staff at the department. She worked to grow the team around her through active listening, exercising patience, and developing trust.
She empowered her own staff, which allowed that cooperation between the local conservation departments and her section.
She'd moved up into management when women weren't doing that every day. She was like a big sister, although she was younger than me, because she had so much more experience.
She trusted your abilities, and she kind of let you go and grow on your own, which was an amazing thing to have in a supervisor or as a friend as well.
Rebecca Wallace recognized the value of developing relationships and elevating her colleagues at the department. Please join the Wisconsin DNR and Rebecca Wallace's family in honoring this year's recipient.
Well worth waiting for. Thank you very much. I think we have a presentation to do.
No, you got to go back under the spot.
Back there. Congratulations. Thank you very much.
Don't the family members go too? Tim, yeah. Bill, or Karen, I think the family members usually go too.
Yeah, great.
You're part of the back room, man.
My career started at, I was with the nonprofit, for the Land and Water Conservation Association. Everything they say about it is true, and you didn't even know it at the time. You were just like, "What's seriously?" And I mean, it was just
Yeah,
phenomenal.
yeah.
The stuff.
Yeah. I hear you.
People in those positions, really. Yeah. But I think we should put this. Open for everybody.
No, I
Oh, yeah, yeah. He's going rogue.
Okay, I guess we're ready to get back to the agenda, and we're back on the normal sequence of the original agenda. So we're on item 4A, and that is request adoption of Board Order FH 0123, proposed rules affecting Chapter NR 25 relating to trawling regulations on Lake Michigan. Justine Haas, Fisheries Management Bureau Director. Welcome, Justine.
Good morning, Chair Smith, Secretary Young, and members of the board. As Bill just said, my name is Justine Haas, and I am the Bureau Director for the Fisheries Management Program. And now I have the enviable job of going after all the great awards. Wonderful things said about those folks. So back to business, I guess. Let's see if I can get this right. So today I'm coming before you for the final step of the rulemaking process to request board adoption of Board Order FH01-23, proposed rules affecting Chapter NR 25 relating to trawling regulations for lake whitefish on Lake Michigan. This topic might seem familiar to you. This is the same topic that we brought to you in February. And there was some conversation during that meeting, and it was tabled, and we have been working on several components of questions that were asked at that meeting. So as a reminder, this rule is to replace a current rule that is expiring in October of 2025. So the first part of this rule is to allow for trawling for lake whitefish from December 1st to August 31st annually, and to remove the sunset. So this will be permanent and indefinite. The second component of this rule is that the camera monitoring system that is on board, that is used currently in the current rule, as it's written right now, if this malfunctions, the fisher has to stop fishing until the camera system is fixed. The new rule is going to implement a one-time, within a year, 14-day exemption, which allows them to continue fishing while they are working on fixing the video surveillance equipment. And then finally, this rule does more precisely define and codifies the dimensions of all aspects of the trawl net. The current rule only defined the cod end with a 4.5-inch stretch mesh, and the rule also codifies more accurate methodologies for measuring the cod end of the net. The remainder of this rule remain the same as the current rule. So at the February board meeting, like I said before, there were several questions and conversations regarding the measurements and some of the aspects of this gear. So I'm going to address those right now for you. So this proposed rule, as I just stated, maintains the standard in the current rule that the cod end must be a 4.5-inch stretch measurement. There were questions about what other types of gear and other places in Lake Michigan that use this type of gear and what are their measurements. So there are a couple of things here for you. One is that the gill nets that are used and for decades have had a 4.5-inch minimum stretch mesh, both in Wisconsin and in Michigan waters of Lake Michigan. And the trawler that trawls in Michigan, the state of Michigan, it gets complicated when we're talking about Lake Michigan and the state of Michigan, but for the trawler for Michigan who fishes in Lake Michigan, we did meet or have a conversation with the Department of Natural Resources of Michigan to understand their net measurements, and their cod net measurement is also 4.5-inch stretch mesh. These have both been this measurement has been used for a very long time because it is a measurement of the way the net allows these young fish or these sublegal fish in this fishery to escape within both of these gears. We were also asked about escapement and how do these fish, because we talked about the reason why we needed this net was to allow these fish to escape. And even though, although that we cannot definitively give an answer to this because we don't have cameras on the nets under the water as the trawl is actually operating, What I can let you know is that in the department's independent surveys where we are targeting to get these juvenile fish, that we are also capturing about 1% of these sublegal whitefish. And so this was also if you remember, the commercial fisher noted that he was catching about 1% of bycatch of these sublegal fish in his gear. So, there is a low number of these sublegal fish out there in the fishery at this time. And so even though I cannot definitively say whether these fish are fully escaping or not, we would state that because on both our survey and what we're seeing in the trawl are very similar, that it is likely that not all of these fish are having the full ability to escape. And then finally, it was also stated during the February meeting that the 4.5-inch stretch mesh of the cod end would have a negative impact on the harvest of legal size lake whitefish. And similar to the escapement component, we cannot definitively say that it won't have an impact, but we would not anticipate that it would have a significant impact because we're really targeting those 17-inch and smaller fish. The other component that we talked quite a bit about in February was how to measure the net. And we have added since the meeting in February a second measurement technique. So I'm now going to just walk you through the 3 measurement techniques for this gear. All right. So the current code, so this is the code that is in the books right now, and this is also used for gill nets and seines. So it is our legal method right now, our only legal method right now for measuring stretch mesh of nets is this method here, where we take a 1-pound weight and we hang it on the net, it pulls the net, and then it's not just any metal ruler. There's a very specific metal rule you have to buy to do this, and that is the measurement. But because of the net twine thickness and how the cod end is made, this current method is not appropriate for measuring the cod end. It is appropriate for measurements of all other aspects of the trawl net, and we will continue to use this method because it's already in code. What we are proposing in this rule is adding 2 new methodologies to allow for more appropriate measurements of the cod end. The first is a bar measurement, and so you measure each side of the mesh net, and that would be a total of 9 inches, which is the equivalent of the 4.5-inch stretch mesh. And we presented this in the original rule in February. What we have added to this rule is a second technique that would be a legal codified method for measuring the cod end, and this is the dynamometer. The dynamometer puts 11 pounds of pressure onto the net to stretch it. The dynamometer only comes with measurements in millimeters, but there is a conversion. So if we stretched at 115 millimeters using a dynamometer, that would equal the 4.5-inch stretch mesh. So this is the second methodology that we have added to the rule since we were here in February. So as a reminder, the proposed rule encompasses the majority of the current rule that is currently being fished, and it just makes 3 main changes. One is it removes the sunset, allowing for trawling from December 1st to August 31st permanently. It also allows for the one-time ability to trawl while there are no cameras functioning, if there is a camera malfunction, for up to 14 days once in the year. And finally, this rule precisely defines the dimensions of the trawl, provides language for new trawlers, if someone wanted to build a new trawl, and specifies how the cod end should be measured to be more accurate, and also codifies the techniques that we can use to measure these so we are more accurate. This rule also proposes a delayed implementation of the cod end dimensions for the current trawl net use, which would allow the current nets to be used through 2026. And with that, I would entertain any questions that you have.
We have a couple of appearances, and I suggest we take those. And Justine, if you could stand by, then there'll be board questions following that.
Sure, yes.
Thank you. Our first appearance is Dan Politsky from Two Rivers. Dan will be appearing virtually. Dan, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Very good. Justine made a nice presentation. I will alter my comments based upon that presentation right around the 1 pound weight versus the 5 pound or 5 kilogram weight. But it goes back to the process of the cod and net. And back in 2015, the cod and net was being used in 2015, and it was an experiment. Most studies are experiments. And it was conducted by the DNR and Sea Grant for the purpose of evaluating the catch of whitefish by trawling. The current cod and net, as is measured to the closest 16th, apparently, is 4 5/16. Well, let's just call it 4 3/8 in relation to the existing or the proposed 4.5 inch net that they're proposing. During this time, Suzy Q has tried different nets in the last 5 years. They developed one net, which measures this 4 5/16, or you could say 4 3/8 is good enough for trawling experiment. I just don't understand why they want to change it now to 4.5. It just, this stuff comes in at the last minute. They've been doing it for the last 9 years. Now, at the last minute, they want to change it. That's the irritating part. The bycatch of undersized whitefish is less than 1%, as was stated. And of course, the trawlers don't want, or anybody else doesn't want, this small undersized fish. Small lake whitefish are the future of all commercial fishers. The commercial fishers do not want to catch the small light fish, and those whitefish are returned to Wisconsin waters. This current cod and net allows larger fish to be caught and marketed. And, Justina had, spoke about the cameras on the boat, and trawling is the only fishing operation which has that requirement to have the cameras on the boat. So I think that's going far and over and above the call of duty. And finally, Suzy Q's fishing zone is in zone 3. It's restricted to 8 grids off the coast of Two Rivers. Two Rivers has typically a sandy base, so when they drop down the trawl net, it bounces along the bottom. And of course, as mentioned before, they catch about 1% by catch, return them to the Lake Michigan. Not all grids are usable, as trawling is regulated to the depths in fathoms. Thus, perhaps slightly over 1/2 of the landward grid is fishable. I'm in favor of FH 0123 with the changes of keeping the existing cod and net at what's been used for the last 5 years at 4 5/16. Just as initial, plus a little bit more about me. I've worked with the city of Two Rivers for 3 decades. I'm retired now. I've been on the commercial fishing board since 1998, so I've heard a lot of things going back and forth pertaining to commercial fishing and DNR regulations, etc. Thank you very much for the time that you have allotted me. Have a good week.
Thank you, Dan. Yeah, are there any questions from the board? Questions for Dan? I guess not. Thank you much, Dan. Appreciate sharing your perspective and experience. You've been involved in this a long time. Our next presenter is Mike LeClaire, representing Suzy Q Fish Company. Mike also will be on a virtual presentation. Mike, are you with us?
Yes.
Welcome.
I'm representing Suzy Q regarding this trawling for whitefish on Lake Michigan. At the last board meeting, I told the board we've been using the cod end for the last 6-7 years. It has proven to release the undersized whitefish. We put a camera on when we first started with Sea Grant, Titus Seilheimer, and it showed the small fish being released. Again, we have that 1% is our bycatch right now. And we have 3 things that keep us from catching small and undersized whitefish. The DNR has a 10% bycatch rule. If we catch more than 10% undersized whitefish, we have to cease fishing, move 3 miles, or change our depth by 30 feet. We have cameras that show our fishing operations, which are reviewed by the DNR. And lastly, wholesalers want fish that are 2 pounds or over, because the fillets, if you go smaller than the 2 pounds, fillets are not, restaurants don't want anything smaller than that. If small whitefish become a problem, the DNR can see it with the cameras, and the 10% rule takes effect. With the 10% rule, we don't want to cease fishing, and we don't want to move from where the fish are, where our best fishing grounds are. The trawl is a different gear than trap nets and gill nets. Whitefish are helped to go through the cod end because of water pressure going through the cod end. And that's why we need a slightly smaller mash as needed. The gill nets and trap nets are stationary gear, and there's no water pressure to help the fish go through the mash. In my opinion, this is a common sense that this cod end has proven itself, and the DNR is letting us use it for 2 more years. So I asked to let us use the one with the cod end that has proven to work. And Susie Q Fish is the only full-time commercial fisher south of Sturgeon Bay. There's no way the small area that we fish off of Two Rivers and Manitowoc that we could possibly hurt the whitefish population. Thank you for letting me speak today.
Thank you, Mike. Are there any questions from the board? Questions or comments? I guess not. Thank you, Mike. Justine, could you come back to the podium? And board have questions or comments? Robin, go ahead.
Thanks, and I appreciate the speakers as well for providing their perspective on this. And I just wanted to clarify, Justine, if you could clarify, please. The existing statute requires a 4.5-inch net. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And the state of Michigan requires a 4.5-inch net.
That is correct.
Okay. And so the operations now are not, it's not that the rule is changing, it's that what you had said before is that you are seeking to make this a permanent rule. So you're not changing that net requirement. So for a lot of our other regulations, do you require people to come into compliance with your fishing requirements?
Yes, we would.
All right, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Marcy?
Yeah, if you could just clarify the first speaker, Mr. Olitsky, the last minute, this went through the regular public hearing and everything. We heard it last month. We just didn't cover it today, correct? That the rule change went through the normal public procedure.
Correct. It's gone through the normal
Okay.
regular procedure. Yes.
Okay, so do you want to address his comment of last minute change?
So yes, I'm not sure what Dan was alluding to, if he was alluding to the change of the size, because the 4.5 inches is in the current rule and it's been proposed all along in this rule. So
Okay.
the only thing we changed was adding in the dynamometer for this today.
A different measurement process. Okay, thank you.
Other questions from the board? Comments? Go ahead, Doug.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Justine. So the addition of the measurement tool to be used, 2 things. So is that an option? Use either or?
Yes.
So the 1 pound weight stretch measurement or the dynamometer?
So the 1 pound stretch weight would be for everything on that trawl net except the cod end. And then the cod end would be the dynamometer or the bar mesh, where you would do the 4 measurements of the square of the mesh, and that would equal 9 inches.
So that the measurement tool that they use, that's something that the fishermen possess? They'll have to purchase those?
No,
That's
that would be on us to have either the ruler to do the measurement or the dynamometer to do the stretch if we were to go measure that nets.
Yeah, and so the tool that we're using has only 115 millimeter increments on it versus inches. Does that have to be part of the rule too, or?
Yes, it's in there. Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thanks, Chair.
Other questions or comments?
I guess I have a question. What do you anticipate, I guess, the advantage of having that larger net size? Do you see, I mean, if their bycatch is already at 1%, or just is this moving forward?
It's both. So the 4.5 inches is what we have, which is what we're all using, which is what we believe is the maximum is not the right side. It's the best option to allow the maximum escapement of those 17-inch and smaller fish, whilst not impacting the fish that are legal to be kept. And our goal is to allow for that maximum escapement. And so, right now we have low-level populations of those small fish, but that means that likely what's happening is the majority of them are not escaping right now, because we're seeing 1% in our surveys and the 1% in the cod end. So it's both for now and also when those numbers come up, to try to keep it below that 10% that Mike was talking about. Excuse me.
It seems, yeah, 1/8 of an inch difference, is that kind of what?
And it's because when it stretches, because of the body form of the fish, it really actually can make a difference on whether they can get through it or not.
Thanks for that clarification.
Yep.
Justine, I think an important point in understanding the comparison of the department sampling nets with what we're seeing on the cameras and experiencing with the trawl net, your sampling is done specifically to catch small fish. So
Correct.
you use a much smaller mesh size. And what you're saying is that in your sample catch of fish, you're still only getting 1% of undersized whitefish in the overall catch. So presumably there aren't any of those smaller fish that are escaping your net.
Correct.
And the intention is to have all of them escape the trawl net.
Correct.
And the numbers are comparable, meaning there may not be too many escaping the trawl net. There just aren't a lot of them out there.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Other questions or comments from the board?
Ready for a motion?
We don't have any more questions. That's next. Hearing none, I think we're ready for a motion.
Go ahead. Did you have a comment? Okay. I'll move approval of the adoption of Board Order FH 0123.
We have a motion to approve from Marcy. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second from Patty. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item 4B, scope statement. Request the board approve statement of scope for Board Order WA 15-24 and conditionally approve the public hearing notice for Board Order number WA 15-24 and notice of submittal of proposed rules to the Legislative Council Rules Clearinghouse for proposed rules affecting Chapter NR 530 relating to implementation of electronics recycling program requirements. Sarah Murray, Recycling and Solid Waste Section Manager. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Smith, Secretary Yun, and members of the board. As you mentioned, I'm Sarah Murray. I'm the Recycling and Solid Waste Section Manager in the Waste and Materials Management Program. And I'm here to ask for your approval of the scope for WA 15-24 related to the changes to the electronics recycling program. See if I can hit the right buttons. All right, here we go. So a little bit of background. Wisconsin's electronics recycling law took effect in 2010. It banned the disposal of many types of electronics in Wisconsin, and it also created the eCycle Wisconsin program to help recycle electronics from Wisconsin households and K-12 schools. The law requires manufacturers of TVs, computers, monitors, printers, and video game consoles to register with the DNR and to recycle a target weight of electronics each year based on the weight of electronics they've sold in the state. So they would have a target of a certain number of pounds they need to help recycle. Manufacturers that fail to meet their targets are assessed an automatic shortfall fee, a number of cents per pound that they are short of the target. So for example, if a manufacturer had a target of 100,000 pounds to recycle this year, They only recycled 90,000 pounds. They would pay a shortfall fee of 30 cents per pound to the DNR. Only electronics from Wisconsin households and K through 12 schools that are collected by registered collectors, registered with the DNR, and recycled with registered recyclers are eligible to count toward these manufacturer recycling targets. The bulk of this rule that we're looking to work on would be fairly narrow and technical changes to improve the program and to address recent legislation. So last spring, a law passed 2023 Wisconsin Act 108, which changed the way these manufacturer recycling targets are calculated. And during our first year of implementing this, we found a few areas where the statute didn't provide all the details that we need or didn't fully address certain scenarios. And so we'd like to use this rulemaking process to codify the procedures we've developed to implement the law and to address some of these scenarios. The law also directed the DNR to create rules surrounding the process by which manufacturers can request a waiver from that shortfall fee. So in the original statute, it allowed manufacturers to ask the DNR to grant a waiver if they can demonstrate they've made good faith progress toward meeting their recycling targets. However, the statute doesn't provide detail on what constitutes good faith progress. We do have an existing guidance document that's gone through public comment that we are currently using to implement this, but through the direction of the law last year, we will codify this through the rulemaking process, and that also allows for another opportunity for stakeholder input. And then in addition, we're looking to make a few small tweaks to collector record keeping and reporting requirements to address some ongoing issues that have led to some confusion and some inaccuracies in how data are reported to us. There's one other topic that we're looking to address through this rulemaking. Over the last several years, we've seen a number of fires throughout the U.S. In the waste and recycling industry. So in collection trucks for garbage and recycling facilities, transfer facilities, landfills. And many of these are either suspected or known to be caused by lithium-ion batteries that are contained in many electronics today. This includes devastating fires that result in the loss of several recycling or waste facilities in Wisconsin in the last few years. The issue of how to handle this challenge posed by lithium-ion batteries in the waste stream is a big and complex one, and the DNR doesn't have the ability or the authority to solve it through rulemaking. However, the statute does grant us the authority through rulemaking to add to the list of electronic devices that can be recycled through eCycle Wisconsin. And so in this rulemaking process, we plan to work with our stakeholders, electronics collectors, recyclers, and manufacturers to identify whether there are some additional battery-containing devices that it would make sense to add to what can be recycled through this established successful recycling program, and hopefully keep a few more of those out of recycling and trash bins. Just an example of this, right now through eCycle Wisconsin, you could recycle an old iPhone, but not an old iPod, and just an MP3 player, just because of the way the definitions are. So that's the sort of thing we'd like to look at with stakeholders. Are there some other devices we could include in this program? It's important to note that adding these as eligible for eCycle Wisconsin would not add to the obligations of manufacturers or any others in the program. It simply gives an option to recycle these through this existing program. So with that, thank you again for your time today. I'm happy to take any questions you might have on the scope.
We have no public speakers. Are there questions from the board? Hearing none, could we have a motion, please?
I'll move.
Doug moves approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Rachel seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Next item is 4C. Request the board approve statement of scope for Board Order DG 2-25 and conditionally approve the public hearing notice and notice of submittal of proposed rules to the Legislative Council Rules Clearinghouse for proposed rules affecting Chapter NR 140 related to setting numeric standards to minimize the concentration of polluting substances for certain per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances, PFAS, in groundwater base on the 2025 DHS recommendations. Dr. Carla Romano, Groundwater Section Manager.
Good morning,
Welcome, Carla.
Chairman Smith, Good morning, Secretary Yan and board members. My name is Carla Romano. I'm the groundwater section manager in the Drinking Water and Groundwater Program here at DNR. And today I'm seeking approval for the scope statement related to Board Order DG0225, which aims to amend NR 140 and to establish groundwater quality standards for 6 PFAS substances. The specific PFAS substances are PFOA, PFOS, PFHXS, PFNA, PFBS, and HFPODA or GenX. The proposed groundwater standards are based on recommendations that were issued by the Wisconsin Department of Health Services, or DHS, back in January 2025. And these recommendations are based on federal numbers that were issued by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. So we are required by statute to promulgate these recommendations as groundwater standards. You might remember me. I was here last meeting in February to seeking approval to hold a preliminary hearing. We held the preliminary hearing on March 6th, and we also had a public comment period that ended that day. We had an online presence of 39 attendees, 8 of which registered in favor of the rulemaking and 0 in opposition. We also received a total of 11 comments between oral and written, 10 of which were in favor of the rulemaking. And we also received 1 joint statement from the Midwest Food Production Association, Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce, and Wisconsin Paper Council. These organizations encourage DNR to engage with stakeholders on the economic impact analysis and to include compliance costs into the scope statement. Other kind of highlights of the comments that we received, we had comments referring to the fact that the rulemaking should not take the full 30-month window, that this is a really important rule for private well owners who rely on groundwater as their drinking water source. And we also received several feedback on the economic impact analysis and also encouragement of engaging with stakeholders, as I mentioned before. So as per DNR, we understand that this is a really important rule, especially for private well owners. We have all the intentions to move as fast as possible, of course, following the regulatory steps. We are prohibited to work on an economic impact analysis until and if the scope statement is approved. However, we encourage stakeholders to submit at any time information that we should consider in drafting the economic impact analysis later on, again, if and when the scope statement is approved. So again, I'm seeking approval for the scope statement for this rule. And if the scope statement is approved, we will proceed with drafting the rule, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Before we get into board questions, we do have one appearance signed up, John Robinson, representing South and also representing Wisconsin's Green Fire. Welcome, John.
Thank you, Chair Smith. It's good to see you and the members of the board and Secretary Ewan. We appreciate the opportunity to comment on the board order DG 0225 relating to the development of numeric groundwater standards for PFAS. Wisconsin's Green Fire in 2020 released a report, Opportunities Now 2.0, Forever Chemicals in Wisconsin, and updated that report in 2023. The reports, along with our PFAS 101 session that we hosted with other groups focusing on local government, provided background in the development and the use of PFAS, their prevalence and impact on human health and in the environment, and made a number of recommendations, including the development of numeric standards based on sound science for surface, groundwater, and drinking water to protect the public and the environment from forever chemicals. The Natural Resources Board has acted and established rules for drinking water and surface water qualities. However, we have not established groundwater standards to date. The development of groundwater standards is important given the fact that over 1 million Wisconsin residents rely on groundwater as a source of drinking water. And unless residents are regulated within a regulated water system, that water is not necessarily tested. Groundwater standards are an important step in protecting the public and the environment, not only because the numeric standard is protective of human health, will be set, but it will also result in the establishment of enforcement standards and preventative action limits that will prompt an investigation into the source of a contamination, and provide an opportunity to take action before the enforcement standard is exceeded. While EPA developed the maximum contaminant limits for drinking water last year, they did not develop groundwater standards. That process is left to the states. Given the fact that these contaminants are forever chemicals and bioaccumulate in humans and animals, it is important to develop groundwater standards. Development of the rule is an important step in the process of establishing standards that incorporate the latest information in science to protect the public health and address forever chemicals. Thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you very much, John. Any questions of John?
Chair.
Doug, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for that, John. So is Green Fire's report, you have to forgive me, I'm not familiar with it, but the 2023 update, the standards that are referenced in your report, are they consistent with this proposal?
Our report called for the development of standards based upon sound science, and I believe that they would be. We can provide that report to the board, the links to the report to the board.
Appreciate that, John. Thank you. Any more, Doug?
Nope, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Hearing none. Thank you very much, John.
Thank you.
Now, Dr. Romano, please return to the podium. Are there other questions of the board? Questions or comments? Marcy?
Yeah, you touched on it a little bit, but the input from Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce and the organizations that they represented in their written statement, the outreach to stakeholders and the opportunity to input is consistent. And as you said, at any point, they can offer input, correct? There's not a formal invitation that needs to go out.
No, exactly. I mean, we're not actively allowed to work, on compliance costs until the scope statement is approved. However, they're welcome to kind of submit information that we should consider later on, again, if the scope statement is approved. And we will have, other occasions and chances for the public to provide comments on the draft of the economic impact analysis and public comment periods for the draft rule. So there will be other opportunities as well that for the public to engage in the rulemaking process.
Excellent. Thank you. Got to have the scope statement first.
Yep. Thanks, Marcy. Doug?
Thanks, Chair. So the last time, and I think I asked this when you were here last month, the last time the RAINS Act was triggered, are we expecting to avoid that this round?
Sorry, can you repeat again?
So the RAINS Act, the last time was triggered?
Yep.
Are we expecting that not to happen this time, or?
Well, we unfortunately cannot really say if it's going to be triggered or not. There's still a possibility, but again, until we have the chance to look at the data, we cannot really assess if the economic impact analysis will say that we will exceed the 10 millions over a 2-year period. So at this point, we cannot make that statement again without looking at the data.
All right, thank you.
Other questions? Robin?
So just a confirmation that you're really prohibited from going beyond, you're really prohibited at this time from having those discussions until the scope statement is approved.
That is
I think
correct.
that this process was set up so that you don't get ahead of things. And so it's not that you're not willing to look forward, you're prohibited from looking forward until after we act today if we choose to approve the scope statement.
That is
And,
correct.
I also just want to clarify, I think your intention is to have a fully engaged network of customers to work on the economic impact statement, should this pass at this point, to allow you to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was kind of the point that I was making during my presentation. We welcome input at, any time. And we received already some feedback during the public hearing. We just cannot actively work on an economic impact analysis at this time.
Patty?
So then what happens if it's not approved, the scope statement?
Well, then the rulemaking is just not happening, and then we have to go back and revise. I'm hoping that if that's the case, we'll receive some feedback on why the scope statement is not approved, so we can just like go back and revise the scope statement if necessary.
Other questions, comments? I just have one before we call a vote. This is obviously a very complex issue. It's large scale. There's a lot of people heavily engaged on all sides of it. And to me, it sends a message. It's even that much more important that we get the discussion started and we start to get past the speculation into the facts and get people working toward good solutions. So it argues hard to get this scope statement approved and to move on.
Yeah, thank you.
With that, I'd ask for a motion.
So moved.
Patty moves approval. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Deb. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Your
Thank you.
scope's approved. Okay, with that, we're actually slightly ahead of schedule. Open forum is typically scheduled about 2:15 right after break, so I suggest we break 10:15. 2:15 would be asking too much of the board.
Yeah.
At 10:15, so I suggest we take break now and return at 10:15, and we'll engage with item 5, open forum. With that, we're adjourned. Thank you.
you.
Time flies when you're having good conversations. But it's also time to get back on the agenda. So we'll start with item 5, which is our open forum. We have 4 appearances. First appearance is Jim Olson from Madison, representing the 232 petitioners on the Home Lake Rule filed February 9th, 2024 concerning wake surfing. Welcome, Jim.
Welcome. Thank you, Chairman Smith, members of the board, Secretary Young. Yes, you mentioned the petition. We filed that 14 months ago. While I've been here, there have been several, things coming before the board as to regulations. Well, public people have the right to petition the board for regulations. And 232 people did file a petition 14 months ago. It was supposed to be responded to within a reasonable period of time, either denying it or moving it forward. 418 days after it was filed, it was denied. On April 1st, the petition was denied. Why we petitioned was because we were deeply disturbed that the regulation requiring ballast systems to be fully emptied could not be done and was not being enforced and was causing a risk for invasive species, according to the studies. Now, basically, the reason I think that it was denied was because the department felt they didn't have the money or the time or the staff to enforce it. And that one of the big things was that there weren't any decontamination facilities provided either by the state or by dealers. But in the denial, they cited the Wake Boat and Ballast Systems guidelines for DNR. And one of the guidelines was that all owners were to perform a low flow hot water flush 120 degrees in and out of the ballast system for 3 to 5 minutes. They cited the ballast decontamination YouTube, which I had provided to you, which came from the Pacific States Marine Fisheries Commission. So the guidelines say that you're supposed to, have your ballast systems flushed with hot water. But there's no way to do it because the state doesn't provide them. The dealers don't provide them. Now our group, of kayakers, will provide one, but that's not sufficient. So if these aren't provided, the guidelines are an empty guidelines. They don't do anything. Now, you should also be aware that you can rent these boats. And we contacted one of the places that rents them. They cost, $3,785 a week to rent one of these boats. And presumably these boats can be used on most any lake up there. But they can't be decontaminated. Now these boats cost between $100,000 and $500,000. I'm out of time.
Jim, you can take a few minutes to summarize your remarks, and the board may have questions for you.
Okay. Now, a hydroblaster, which, our group is spending $30,000 to get, only costs $30,000. That's a lot for me. But when you sell a boat that's up to $500,000, that's peanuts. And it could be very easily, the dealers could very easily provide this service. All it requires is for the department to require the boats to be decontaminated, just like you have regulations relating to trawler nets and other things. This is squarely within the job of the Department of Natural Resources. Okay, I've been participating here. We filed the petition. We've also participated and gotten overwhelming support from the Wisconsin Conservation Congress for regulations. And we've accomplished nothing. We've accomplished nothing in 2 years or 3 years. Now, in the denial of the petition, it talked about legislation. There's no legislation that's going to work with these ballast systems. This is squarely within the department's responsibilities because it deals with invasives. So it's up to the department to set regulations. Now, Secretary Young, you mentioned you've been meeting with legislators. Our group has been meeting with people throughout the state. Over 40 communities have now adopted some form of regulation. There'll probably be another 40 within a year. That sounds good. Okay, maybe we'll cover 10 to 15% of the lakes. It's up to the department to save the rest. We're willing to meet with you at any time to give you our information on it.
Thank you, Jim. I have a question for you. Your group has very generously offered a pilot project, and the department staff have been working with you on that. I don't know the answer for this. I'm just curious on where we're at with that. And it was an intent to be able to show that a decontamination system used in other parts of the country could work here. And I'm wondering if we're making progress on it.
No, we're not making progress on it. I don't know who's dropped the ball, but you know, the money's in the bank. You know, I've contributed money, kayakers have, canoeists have. Everybody's willing to, you know, we're willing to do something out there. But the people with all the big bucks aren't interested.
Okay, thank you. Are there questions from the board? Robin?
So thank you for coming and sharing your concerns and educating us on the various aspects of this. I'm wondering if, so I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So the dealers who rent these boats, what I heard you say was that those boats are more likely to be transported from lake to lake as opposed to people who purchase these boats for a property that they own on one lake. And is that kind of what I hear you saying?
Well, that's correct. Although, you know, people who buy the boats can take them from lake to lake. In fact, we have many out-of-state people who own these boats who bring them into Wisconsin and dump them in the lakes.
And then what was the cost you said for one of these decontamination?
About $30,000 to $35,000.
And then can I ask you one other question? So my understanding also is that when those boats are winterized, that there's a certain amount of I'm really bad with terminology. So
Antifreeze?
Thank you. That gets in them so that they don't freeze.
Right.
And then would a decontamination system that you were talking about, would that also be used to then eliminate the antifreeze from going into the lakes? Because that would be done offshore?
Yeah, the decontamination system is, you know, the YouTube I gave you was from the Fish and Wildlife Service and also by this Pacific place. And they show exactly how you do it. It takes about half an hour and it seems to work. I mean, and there have been hundreds of them sold out in Western states. And Western states have gotten serious about the mussel problem. There's a mussel-free Colorado law. Now what they did was they required a $25 sticker for all boats, and that paid for the decontamination system. I don't think it's a job of the public, or at least, you know, to provide a system that will make these boats legal. I think that's a job of the people who sell them to make sure that their boats can be legally used in the state.
And one last question, and you may not know this, but I'm just curious, how many dealers are there out there who rent these vehicles or these boats? Do you have any idea?
I don't have any idea. I think we know of a couple up in the north. We maybe can find out more. I mean, you know, we could call them up and find out what they are.
I was just curious.
Yeah, but we do know that one up in the northern part has, you know, they rent them out for over $3,785 a week, and they're pretty well filled up. And but the dealers also say, no, they don't have decontamination facilities.
Thank you.
Any more questions? I'm glad to,
I could ask more, but I think my fellow board members will be shooting things at me.
well, as a lawyer, I'll try to answer anything, even if I can't.
Well, Robin, we'll give you a break. Doug's got a question.
Thanks, Chair. So Jim, thanks again, Jim, appreciate your coming here every time and reminding us of what DNR is not doing. So, you know, we need to do better. There's no doubt about that. So the demo project that you offered, that's not happening. Why isn't it happening? Is that on our end, on DNR's end?
Well, I think it's inertia. I mean, we've been dealing with the legislature. We haven't, I mean, the department says, oh, we'll be happy to work with you. I think we need to get off the ground on that. And it's still there. I mean, the money's in the bank. It's maybe too late this year to buy one of these systems because there's a certain amount of lead time, but we're willing to go ahead. We're willing to do anything. I mean, and, you know, I had hoped that a reasonable period of time for denial would have been less than 418 days. And, you know, we're not going away because the problem isn't going away. And what we're looking at right now is to come up with another petition to file, which we think will address many of the problems in the denial. We're willing to meet with the people from the department. We're willing to meet with the secretary and try to work things out. This is a big problem. And, you know, last summer, we found out that there were quagga mussels in the lake, in Lake Geneva. It takes, our studies show that about 12 parts per million, I believe it is, for calcium is what it takes for quagga mussels and zebra mussels to survive. And there are probably a couple thousand lakes in Wisconsin that have that.
One more, Chair.
Go ahead, Doug.
And I might have missed,
Patty, and then Rachel.
I might have missed it. So the rental folks that are renting these boats out, are they decontaminating them themselves? The folks that are renting them out?
Well, according to the department, they contacted the dealers, and they said that the dealers don't have any facilities. So you know, I'll tell you how you would get the dealers to get these systems is to pass a regulation requiring them to be decontaminated. And they, you know, it would be marketing to be able to decontaminate these boats.
One last one, Chair. So,
One more,
so put my other hat on. So the Governor's Council on Invasive Species, which I sit on also, you know, primarily NR40 function, but you know, I know you guys are thorough in where you're going with this, but you know, I think reaching out to the council might be another avenue for you to get additional traction on this.
Well, if you would give me the access number, I would be glad to.
I will do that after the meeting, Jim.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you,
you,
Chair.
Doug. Patty?
I feel like I know you personally. I've been listening to this
I'm sorry.
conversation. No, I've learned a lot in that, and the wake surfing and this boat is truly causing an issue with some of the other states that have went through this and then got regulations. How much damage was done before regulations came?
Well, it's hard for me to say. All I know is that the western states, like Colorado, Wyoming, others, when the quagga mussels started showing up in their waters, they got serious about it. And they set up these decontamination programs. And I told you, you know, they did it with boat fees. And you know, if a Wisconsin person takes their wake boat to Colorado, it'll be inspected,
Mm-hmm.
but it won't be inspected in Wisconsin.
Okay, Rachel?
Okay, my questions are related to kind of these decontamination stations. You know, where would they need to be, and if you can have one per lake, or and you said we have 1,000 lakes, how would that work? And out west where they have them, is it just there's fewer lakes out there, or how do you see this to be fair and equitable that we, would be able to service or provide that or regulate it for everyone throughout the state, whereas, it may end up looking like, the lakes with more, population around them would get preferential treatment, in which case maybe then it's a lakes association thing, or I'm just trying to figure out if each of them costs $30,000 and we've got 1,000 lakes in our state, how that works geographically.
Well, the hydroblaster is a system that can be moved from place to place. So it could be used, it could be used at a central location where we're planning to use it in northern Wisconsin. We'd be kind of a centrally located place, and there's many, many lakes up in northern Wisconsin that are at risk. So it wouldn't take all that, it wouldn't take that much of a drive time to get there. I driven 600 miles to fish for muskies. You can drive, a couple hours to get your boat decontaminated. And I don't know that would take a couple. I would think if you would have, we'd have to work it out, but certainly in the southeastern part of Wisconsin, where you already have quagga mussels and you have calcium contents, which will cause quagga mussels and zebra mussels to thrive, it would be important to have, a system down here. There also are drive-in systems. They cost more, where you drive the boat in and it gets decontaminated. That's what they have at the borders of a lot of these states. So it could be worked out. We've got a lot of lakes. So maybe it's too big of a problem because we have too many lakes. But I think it's too big of a problem to ignore.
Other questions from the board, comments? Okay, Jim, thank you very much. We have some other appearances coming in on the wake surfing topic.
Thank you.
Our next appearance is Jeff Meisman from Presque Isle, representing himself on wake surfing. Jeff, are you with us?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Morning, Jeff. Welcome.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I thought your questions to Jim were just excellent. I'm glad to hear you guys had a lot of really good questions, and I really appreciate your level of interest. I think has come up quite a bit. Thank you very much. Again, my name is Jeff Meisman. I'm a retired professional mechanical engineer and reside in Presque Isle, Wisconsin. Today, I'm going to be speaking to you about the problems with wake boat ballast systems. The ballast system in a wake boat is filled with lake water to increase the displacement of a boat so that large hazardous wakes can be produced. One of the many problems with this type of boat is that the ballast system, as designed, cannot be completely emptied or inspected and risk transferring aquatic invasive species from lake to lake. Existing Wisconsin laws require complete draining, but are seldom enforced. Drainage of water from boats and equipment is required according to NR 19055. It states drain all water from the boat, boat trailer, boating equipment, including water in any ballast tanks, immediately after removing the boat from water, bank, or shore. Violation of this administration rule results in the spread of aquatic invasive species by these ballast systems. Some that have these boats claim this is not a problem. However, there are two significant university studies that indicate this is a problem. The University of Wisconsin Campbell study revealed that wake boat ballast systems, after being removed from the lake, had an average of 8 gallons of residual lake water. Some of the boats had over 22 gallons of residual lake water. When the water was tested, it contained zooplankton. That's not really surprising because all lakes have some zooplankton, but 2 of the boats had zebra mussel larvae. The University of Minnesota did another study and they compared 8 boat compartments. The ballasted boats contain the most zebra mussel larvae when compared to other watercraft compartments. If ballasted boats come from Lake Minnetonka and puts into your lake, there will be a 7 in 10 chance of transferring 100 zebra mussel larvae. So what are the AIS that are at risk? We risk spiny water flea, zebra mussels, quagga mussels. They all can be transferred by wake boat ballast system, and there's no practical way to eliminate this invasive. These powerful boats aim their prop wash toward the bottom of the lake, cutting up aquatic plants like Eurasian milfoil and curly leaf pondweed. These small plant fragments can be transferred to other lakes or parts of the same lake, starting new infestations. Blue-green algae can be fertilized by phosphorus that was dormant on the lake for centuries and now but has been redistributed into the water column by excessive wakeboat prop wash. The following information comes from wakeboat manuals, and I emphasize, please listen to this because this is all just cut and paste from their manuals. The Malibu owner manual warns that zebra mussels attach and infest inside the ballast tanks. That's number one. Number two, the Malibu owner manual warns that if you try to drain the tanks completely, you risk damaging equipment and it will not be covered under warranty. Number three, for winterization process, the Mastercraft instructs adding 2 gallons of antifreeze to each of the ballast tanks. And number four, upon reactivating the boat for the first time after winter storage, Mastercraft instructs run the ballast system and pump out the antifreeze. The engine must be on and the boat must be in the water. Antifreeze is classified as a universal waste and it has specific disposal requirements. It's unlawful to discharge it into the lake. So even the boating industry admits to the problem, yet the DNR, NRB, WCC, and our legislation do nothing to take a stand and protect our lakes from wakeboat damage. Please explain why. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Are there questions from the board? Marcy, and then Robin.
Hi, Jeff. Good to see you. And as always, thanks to everyone who testifies. I had the opportunity to attend the Lakes and Rivers Convention, and I had a number of conversations that were very interesting. I guess it's not necessarily a question that has an easy answer, and obviously this whole issue doesn't have an easy answer. But the comments about the ordinances working in communities in combination with a decontamination site or decontamination sites, where that responsibility lies, I guess, is really my point. I'm not sure it's the public responsibility for decontamination if we have owner's manuals like what you read from and owners not taking responsibility. And I just wonder if there's an opportunity, Secretary, to have an informational item in the future from the manufacturers, because I don't think we've had that yet. We tried to at a field trip and it didn't work out. But I mean, this issue of responsibility when we're heading into a budget like this, a decontamination site and staffing it and enforcing it, I mean, not to mention these rentals have to make our wardens pretty nervous that people are not trained to drive. I've seen people rent pontoon boats that should not be driving a putt-putt boat. So I just, this comes back over and over. And so if you want to comment at what you heard at the Lakes and Rivers Conference from where ordinances are working, where other issues are working, but I mean, really heading into this budget season, is this the responsibility of the department?
I think that's a great question. I think the rulemaking is the responsibility of the department because you've already demonstrated that by enacting an emergency order under NR 19055. This was an emergency rule in 2008/9, and it was actually enacted permanently in 2009. So I think you have the authority and the capabilities to enact an emergency rule. So I think it is your responsibility to do that. However, cleaning and decontaminating of all the boats, I think falls upon the marinas that sell these boats and the people that own these boats. I mean, why should the public pick up $30,000 or any amount of money to clean somebody else's boat? I don't think that's right. I think it should be the responsibility. But the regulations that would control that your boat has been cleaned. For example, if with the home lake rule, it said you clean your boat, you get a sticker. It says good for use in a specific lake. That would be a potential solution, that it's been cleaned by a licensed professional boat decontaminator and that this boat now is clean and can be used in a specific lake. When you take that boat and move it out to a different lake, you have to have it cleaned again because you always run the risk of transferring aquatic invasive species from lake to lake. So to answer your question succinctly, I think you have the authority and the responsibility to protect our natural resources and enact an emergency order like the Home Lake Rule. But I do believe it's the responsibility of the boat owners and the marinas to pick up the cost of this. As Jim mentioned, there's the $30,000 cost for the hydroblaster is one method, but there is a really good method, and it's unfortunately it's about $800,000, but it's a giant pool where you back your entire boat into it and you heat that water's heated up to about 110 degrees Fahrenheit. They circulate that water through the ballast systems for about 15 minutes. Done. So it could handle a large volume of boats. Like if we have a large volume of wake boats in the southern part of the state, you could easily move, 4 boats in an hour through the system. The hydroblaster is a little bit more labor intensive. You got to connect hoses and pipes, and it's just more labor intensive, but it's a lot less cost. So there's options out there. And I want to say one more thing. The Sea Grant Institute has made a study on this regarding states that have a bona fide aquatic invasive species management program, and Wisconsin is third from the bottom on the protocol for inspecting these boats. We have the most lakes practically. We're third from the top on the number of lakes, but according to the Sea Grant Institute, we're doing a terrible job of aquatic invasive species management. I'll be glad to send you that report if you want to see it.
Yes, could you please send that?
Sure.
Thank you, Jeff. Robin, question?
Yes, so this is sort of piggybacking on the conversation that you just had, and the role of, I guess maybe I'm going to use this word loosely, the responsibility of, especially for those facilities that rent these boats that go from lake to lake. Have you had any discussions with perhaps one of the retailers who does rentals about having them be a location for where a decontamination could be put there? And then kind of similar to what they have for shoreline property owners who put those little signs up saying, hey, we're protecting, they're like pride signs about doing the right thing, that there's a voluntary approach, at least in the interim, that when a boat rental goes out, that it has a little sticker on it that says, hey, we decontaminated this, but it kind of brings awareness to the issue. It provides perhaps a selling point for those retailers to have that. I mean, is there, instead of thinking of this from putting it at a boat landing, has there been talk about working with a business to have this be a selling point for them?
This is my opinion, but compliance without a regulation isn't going to happen. I just don't feel that these boat manufacturers are going to do something unless you have some sort of regulation that forces them to do something. So while we haven't had specific conversations, I don't see that being an option for us. I think there needs to be some form of regulation saying that you have to do this, and then I think we'd get the boat manufacturers to comply with it. And to me, this is a no-brainer. I mean, I would think even the boating industry, to some degree, would be in favor of it because it would take that off the table of having these boats spread aquatic invasive species from lake to lake. They say that they don't do that, but then in their manuals it says they have quagga mussels and zebra mussels growing in their ballast system. So which is it?
Other questions from the board? Yeah.
Really quickly, how many boats are there in Wisconsin? Wake boats? Do we know?
More every day.
I'm just wondering.
I can kind of respond.
Okay.
Would you very briefly and narrowly, Jim? Thank you.
Okay. We made an open records request to the department. These boats are not required to be registered as far as a wake surfing boat. So you can't go to the registration and find out if they're wake surfing boats. I asked the department I gave them the 12 most popular boats in 2023 and asked them how many registrations were there for those particular boats, Malibu, so forth and so on. Well, in 2023, they came back and very quickly and said there were, I think, approximately 1,100 of the most popular ones in 2023.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions from the board? Okay, we'll move on to our next appearance. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Our next appearance is Mary Jung from Newbold, representing herself and speaking on wake surfing. Mary, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Welcome.
My name is Mary Jung, and I have a home in Newbold, Wisconsin, in northern, up in the northern region. I'm a Clean Boats, Clean Waters volunteer and an AIS shoreline inspector volunteer. There's thousands of us around the lake, or around the state, as you know, that volunteer to do these jobs, spending tens of thousands of hours each year doing them to keep our lakes free of AIS. We're well versed in the inspect, remove, dry, and drain mantra, and we preach stop aquatic hitchhikers. It's the law. We're the boots on the ground, or the boat landings in this case, and we are crawling under the trailers. We're looking into live wells. We're examining hulls and engine props, but we desperately need your help. There's one type of boat we can inspect, and it's wake boats. By design, their closed ballast systems don't drain completely. They don't dry, and they can't be inspected. We've known for years that the most serious AIS we have, like the ones Jeff mentioned, spiny water fleas, zebra mussels, and now quagga mussels, arrived here because of ocean-faring boats, or ocean-faring ships in their ballast. There's plenty of research confirming that the recreational boats carry residual water, and that water has invasive villagers and plants in it. And there's confirmation from the boat manufacturers themselves about this. So these boats are in violation of NR 19 and NR 40, which make it illegal to transport water and invasive species. Yet the DNR isn't doing anything because they say they can't inspect the ballast. We all know it's a problem that exists. You know it as well as we do. But unless the state steps in to enforce these laws, the problem's only going to get worse. Just as an example, for 2025, 3 of the most well-known former ski boat brands, which are now rebranding themselves, Malibu, Mastercraft, and Nautique, each have just one non-ballast ski boat, just one, in their lineups, and they gear that to the competitive skiers. The rest of their lineups combined, they have 39 wake boat models, with an average of 3,400 pounds of ballast. For the most part, these wake boats are now being marketed as the family boat for memories on the water in the hopes of pushing more buyers into higher margin boats. Our state laws and our lakes be damned. Most cost well north of $100,000, and most carry thousands of pounds of ballast, which don't drain completely. These are powerful and profitable boats. And these are just 3 of the many manufacturers that are out there. The industry is really successful at flooding the market with ballasted boats, but they have no solution for how to engineer the boats to completely drain, dry, or be inspected. That just doesn't add up. By design, most ballast clearly violate state law. And until they come into compliance, the most cost-effective and reasonable option is their use should be prohibited. Last year marked the 20th anniversary, I believe, of Clean Boats, Clean Waters, and it's had a tremendous impact on boater education and on slowing the spread of AIS. But the ballast system is a problem that we can't handle. We need the state to start enforcing its laws. Thank you.
Mary, thank you for your comments, and thank you for your service in the Clean Water, Clean Boats program for many years. Very much appreciated. Are there questions for Mary? Appreciate your perspective from somebody that's got feet on the ground right there at the landing. It's important to understand that. Thanks. Our next appearance is Carol Phillips from Presque Isle, speaking on wake surfing. Welcome, Carol.
Hi, thank you. Carol Phillips. I'm a retired registered professional civil engineer. Current state boating laws are outdated and do nothing to protect people from the extreme wakes generated for the new and growing sport of wake surfing. Wisconsin's boating law administrator, Darren Kuhn, testified at your meeting last August saying, and I hope you'll review what he said last August, starting at about 2 hours and 15 minutes. He had a PowerPoint presentation that showed that there are really only 2 laws that might protect other boaters from the hazardous wakes created for surfing. First, there's the approach or pass law. But he explained that that law would not apply unless the two boats were reasonably close together, close enough to be considered approaching or passing. In his example, he said that when you're surfing 200 feet from another watercraft, that 200 feet would be too far to be considered approaching or passing, so that law does not apply. And he said, and the boating industry's own study shows that the wake at 200 feet is still 16 inches high. So there's no law protecting a fisherman or a kayaker from a 16-inch wake from a surf boat that passed 200 feet away. Kuhn also explained that the only other law that might possibly help is the negligent operation law. And that's a criminal offense, and it requires a high burden of proof. And he explained that that's generally only used for cases of serious injury, extreme damage, death, or intoxicating boating. So what state laws are left to protect others? None. They just have to leave the lake when someone else wants to surf. Wisconsin's public trust doctrine is supposed to protect the rights of all citizens to navigate and enjoy the water. And the mission statement of the DNR includes ensuring the right for all people to use and enjoy the water. I'm wondering, what is the DNR's plan for working toward that mission statement and standing behind the public trust doctrine? Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Questions or comments from the board? Okay, thank you very much, Carol.
Thank you.
Okay, that's all the appearances under item 5, open forum. We'll move on to item 6, and we've already covered 6A and 6B on the presentations earlier, so the next item is 6C. That's an update on highly pathogenic avian influenza in Wisconsin's wild birds. Jasmine Batten, Wildlife Health Section Supervisor, Bureau of Wildlife Management. Welcome, Jasmine.
Thank you, and good morning, Chair Smith, Secretary Hyun, and board members. Thank you for giving me a few minutes today to provide you with a high-level overview and update on a kind of current situation, and that is highly pathogenic avian influenza in our wild birds in Wisconsin. There we go. Had to find the right button. So to start, I'll just give a quick little outline of what I'm going to cover today. I'm going to start with just a really high-level background on avian influenza viruses generally. Then I'm going to talk about the current ongoing HPAI H5 outbreak that's been occurring in many parts of the world, including the United States. Then I want to share just some details on recent detections and kind of what's been happening on the landscape very recently, and then just touch really basic on what the DNR is doing to respond to HPAI in wild birds and what the public can do to help. So avian influenza type A viruses occur readily and naturally among wild aquatic birds, primarily waterfowl, but also gulls and shorebirds. So these viruses exist in a great variety. So there's many different strains, genotypes of the virus, and often for our natural reservoir species, like many of our dabbling duck species, these viruses typically do not cause illness or harm to the birds. Unfortunately, outbreaks of avian influenza do occasionally occur in our poultry populations, and often our poultry species can be much more susceptible to the disease. And so you'll often hear avian influenza viruses categorized according to their ability to impact domestic poultry. So either low pathogenic or highly pathogenic. And those highly pathogenic viruses are the avian influenza viruses that have a propensity to cause very high mortality in domestic poultry species. Although very rare, some of our highly pathogenic avian influenza viruses that have occurred throughout the world have caused illness in people. And in some of those outbreaks, fatality rates in humans have been extremely high, although to date there has been no documented human-to-human transmission of the disease. So that's a really high-level primer to what is avian influenza. I'm going to focus in a little bit and talk about the ongoing HPAI H5 outbreak that we are experiencing today in Wisconsin. So this outbreak was actually first documented in North America in late 2021. We had our first detections in wild birds in our state in early 2022. And so although this has gained a lot of attention very recently for the public and the media, this is a challenge that has been ongoing for a number of years. This outbreak of the virus has been a bit unprecedented in terms of what has been seen with avian influenza, specifically high-path AI in the past. In the longevity that our wild birds have been able to transmit this disease, we're going on over 3 years now, but also the wide range of wild species that have been impacted by this virus. To date, worldwide, over 165 bird species have been impacted. Also unique to the outbreak for the last couple of years is we have seen sporadic spillover of the virus into a variety of wild mammal species, both terrestrial and marine. In Wisconsin, we've had a number of wild species that we've seen impacted sporadically by the virus, including red fox, otters, fisher, and bobcats, as well as striped skunks. Last year, it was announced by our agriculture partners around the country that avian influenza was detected for the first time in dairy cattle, and there has been a reported 995 cattle impacted in 17 states, although to date our agriculture partners have not shared any detections of HPAI in cattle in our state. And then finally, to date, this virus in the last 3 years has been reportedly detected in 17 humans in the United States, caused 1 death. Fortunately at this point, however, public health does inform us that for the general public, the risk of this virus is low. The vast majority of those cases were in people that had very close contact with sick birds in a farm setting, and most of those cases caused mild symptoms. And I'll just point out the map. It's kind of not that detailed that's up there, but that is a map of all the counties in the United States where there have been confirmations of HPAI detection since 2022. The take home, it's been very, very widespread. That map is courtesy of the USGS National Wildlife Health Center. I'll just make a little side note that they are located right here in Madison, Wisconsin. They're incredible partners for us in this ongoing HPAI outbreak, as well as other wildlife disease issues. They do some of our diagnostic services, but also provide us this regional coordination and perspective and a lot of technical advice and guidance. So focusing even a little bit more narrow, I just want to talk about what we're seeing today. So in the initial outbreak of this disease in Wisconsin in 2022, we did see pretty high mortality in a wide variety of wildlife species. That was a really busy spring. We had a lot of reports from the public, a lot of dead and sick birds on the landscape. And we have seen nationwide there is an association with migration season with this disease. And although the first year, the spring migration brought really high mortality rates across the country, we've seen kind of typically higher rates in our fall migration. Fortunately, in Wisconsin, over the years of 2023 and 2024, the virus was still out there. We had periodic detections, but we really were not seeing big mortality events or frequent mortality events. It changed a little bit in mid-December. We had an uptick in reports of sick and dead geese and swans in a number of counties in the state, and we were able to test and confirm that it was indeed HPAI causing mortality in several locations around the state. In February, we began to get reports of dead mergansers along the Lake Michigan shoreline, first in Milwaukee County, but then also kind of sporadically from Door County all the way down to Kenosha. This was a very high-profile event because south of us in Chicago, there was also dead mergansers, and so with a populated area, it garnished a lot of attention. But we were able to confirm that avian influenza was involved in that ongoing merganser mortality. And then most recently, just last week, we submitted some samples for a sandhill crane mortality in Adams County, about 70 cranes. Those results are pending, so we cannot say that that's HPAI yet, but I will note that our southern states in Indiana, Kentucky, and Tennessee did have seen some crane mortality this season, and so we won't be surprised if that's what happens to be the cause of death for those cranes. So those are the kind of the groups or mortality events that we've been seeing recently, certainly not reaching the mortality levels that we saw in early 2022. We continue to have sporadic single bird detections in a number of other species, including bald eagles and peregrine falcons. And so I think the natural question that I get asked a lot is what do we expect for the remainder of the spring? Unfortunately, it's really hard to predict with this virus. This virus is not the same as it was when it started in 2022. There's multiple strains. There's a lot of genetic shift, reassortment as different strains come together. And so those changes do affect over time which species are impacted and how fatal the disease can be. So it's really hard to predict at this point where the disease is going, but we know the virus is out there, so we are likely to continue to see some mortality through the spring season, and hopefully by summer that will follow the trend of declining. So moving on to how DNR Wildlife Management is responding to HPAI in wild birds. I wanted to start just really high level talking about the great collaboration and communication we have ongoing with our federal and state partners. First, I'll talk just really briefly about USDA Wildlife Services. They do take the lead on national surveillance for early detection of avian influenza around the country. And so in Wisconsin, they are taking the lead on sampling hunter-harvested birds and testing live birds that are handled by agencies during banding operations and routine opportunities like that to test birds. They also work closely with our agriculture partners when domestic facilities are found to often do testing of wildlife in the area to assess a risk and possible spillover or spill back into wildlife species. But most, in terms of state partners, I just wanted to call out our Wisconsin Department of Health Services specifically and our Department of Ag, Trade, and Consumer Protection. So we work very closely with colleagues in those agencies sharing information. I mean, we're very clear with the public that our expertise is wild birds, not human health or domestic animals, but it's very frequent that we'll get a call about a sick duck, and then it will lead to questions about pets and human safety. And so we really share a lot of information in terms of detections for situational awareness with these agencies. We provide technical support to each other, and on occasion, when appropriate, we've even gone so far as having joint communications out to the public. In terms of actual investigation of sick and dead birds, our wildlife health program does maintain a sick and dead wildlife morbidity and mortality response program. And so we do monitor reports of sick and dead wildlife, including birds, over time. We don't always go out in the field and collect samples and test those birds, given limited resources. We primarily prioritize events of dead and sick wildlife, including birds. Certainly don't have capacity to test every single sick wildlife in the state. But even for those cases where we don't go out and collect samples, all of that data or reports from the public go into a database, and that data really is beneficial over time to monitor impacts on populations and kind of look out for any new emerging trends that are happening. I just wanted to point out that we have a few ways that the public reports sick and dead wildlife to us. One is a observation reporting form that's on our wildlife health website. It's a really easy form where they can just put details about sick birds, where they were seen and what the symptoms were. And then we have our wildlife switchboard, which is a kind of a centralized question and answer system that Wildlife Management and NHC utilize. The public can call with any questions or send an email regarding anything related to wildlife, including reporting sick and dead animals to that service. And then another big piece of our response is just providing information to the public. One big source of information is our public website, our avian influenza website. We do keep that as up to date as possible. I just wanted to point out that recently, in response to the increase in attention to some of the bird mortality events that have happened from the public and the media, we did add a more detailed report of confirmations that we've had since mid-December. So I've got the link circled. It's on our avian influenza site. It's a table that details species tested, number involved, result, date, and general location. And so hopefully that'll be helpful information as the public continues to be interested in this high-profile topic. We're also making an effort to share information with some of our important partners that work closely with wildlife, particularly our wildlife rehabilitators. So we're providing them updates, guidance, biosecurity recommendations. Last week, our wildlife health staff was able to attend a roundtable that the Wisconsin Wildlife Rehabilitation Association hosted. And so we were able to provide an update and answer questions directly from wildlife rehabilitators. And then finally, we've been doing a lot of kind of one-on-one consulting and corresponding with municipalities, local health officers, and other officials as they've had bird mortality events in their own properties or their areas. There's been a lot of public talk and questions that have come up. And so finally, what can the public do about HPAI? Our number one advice is to report sick and dead wild birds to DNR. Again, we monitor those reports. We don't always test, but that data is very helpful to understand what's happening on the landscape. Always the public is advised to avoid contact with sick or dead wildlife, including birds right now during this outbreak. If a carcass must be handled, sometimes they might need to dispose of a dead duck in their yard to keep it away from their pets or, keep it away from their kids. In those cases, it's always recommended to wear gloves and use basic PPE precautions, and our Department of Health has a lot of other guidance for other folks that are concerned about possible contact. And then generally, it's recommended to prevent contact as much as possible between domestic or captive birds and wildlife. That could be either physical contact, keeping your backyard flocks behind a fence, but it could also be indirect. So I didn't mention that HPAI can spread both directly from sick birds and in the environment. So for, say, our waterfowl hunters, if they're out in the field hunting, they don't want to go to their backyard poultry flock with their same birds with their same boots, because it is possible to transfer that virus on contaminated surfaces or in the environment. And that's what we wanted to share with you today. So with that, that's all I have, and I'll answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Jasmine.
Welcome.
Questions from the board? Patty?
What does a sick bird look like?
So birds that show symptoms, it's often a neurologic symptom. So that could be just lethargic behavior, but often weird posture or weird movements. Yeah. And that's similar with the rare mammal situations we've had. The foxes or some of the bobcats that have been sick have also shown abnormal neurologic symptoms.
Other questions, comments? Marcy?
Thank you. Really interesting presentation. So you indicated it's not the same virus, it has been changing. And with the federal partners, is to confirm, or how do you track the change? Is it always at the federal level? And what have the recent impacts on federal issues had on that?
Good question. So it is because there's so much variation in the avian influenza virus. Testing is not exactly straightforward. There's a series of tests. The first test just looks for avian influenza generally. So like if we have a duck species, it might have a positive, but it could be a low path virus, right? And so then they have to test and see, is it in this group of viruses that has
a low path?
Yeah, the viruses are characterized as either highly pathogenic or low pathogenic. And so the low pathogenic viruses don't cause as much illness in domestic poultry, and our waterfowl species are natural reservoirs. So at any given time, if you went and tested a sample of waterfowl, they would be positive for these low path viruses. Yeah. So we test, usually we're working with either National Wildlife Health Center, USGS, and when they're able to, when a situation meets their diagnostic criteria, their submission criteria, they will take the samples. We have no charge for that. It's a great service offered to all the states. They're continuing to operate today, but we have some concerns about capacity over time with them. Our other testing source is that diagnostic lab at UW-Madison. That is, we pay for that service. Those initial tests that come from those labs, they get us far enough to tell us it's very likely an H5N1 highly pathogenic avian influenza virus. So enough to say that we can release to the public, yes, we believe strongly this is HPAI, and it's in this broader family that's been circulating. The actual genetic genotyping does go to the National Vet Services Lab in Ames, Iowa. That is a federal lab. Generally, there's big delays in that genotyping that happen for wildlife because they're lower in the priority versus domestic cattle and things like that. And so we're already delayed in those genotypings. So it usually takes a few months to understand what genetic makeup these viruses are. That's a wordy answer. I hope you kind of followed that.
Yeah, I
And
do.
so if certainly like if that's the lab that's doing the confirmations right now, they're keeping up with this several month delay that we already have with wildlife, but certainly nervous or have concerns that services could be impacted.
Yeah, and that gets to my next point is that we do have a backup. It's not as effective, but UW can get us close.
Right now, they're not doing that genotyping, so that's
Right.
and that's where that understanding how the virus is shifting and what that might mean in terms of whether it's other species are susceptible or more likely to impact human health. So,
But there's no private lab that offers
not
that service in
I'm
Wisconsin.
aware of. So because this is a federally regulated reportable disease, we follow only the certified laboratories.
Okay, thank you. One more.
Go ahead.
Okay. On the public outreach, I just wonder if it's been considered Saturday, thousands of people will be out at sunrise with the National Crane Count. If there could be some specific outreach for those folks like me that are going to be out there and say, if you see something, here's the contacts.
That's a great idea. I wonder if there are any of we've shared information with the Crane Foundation, International
Okay,
Crane
good.
Foundation, in terms of what we were hearing from other states about sandhill cranes. If we get confirmation from this die-off that this was HPI, we will share that. So maybe some of the grassroots messaging could be out. But probably not before this weekend. We probably wouldn't get a press release or anything.
Right.
But I think
Well,
that's a
no,
great
if you've already
idea.
done it, I mean, it might already be in our instruction package.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but we could at least follow up with maybe some of those organizers and see if there's any other information we could provide for them.
Okay,
So
thank you.
Other questions?
all right, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jasmine.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is 6D, our 2025 Wisconsin Wildland Fire Season Preparation and Outlook. Jim Barnier from Division of Forestry, Forest Fire Protection Section Manager. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Smith and Secretary Hunt. My name's James Barnier. I'm the Forest Fire Protection Section Chief within the division. And currently, I oversee suppression and prescribed burning across the state. And those items are near and dear to my heart. I'm extremely passionate. So if I talk too much, just let me know and you can shut me down. That's fine. But I really feel, is the slide show up by chance? Okay, well, I'll keep talking till it comes. I think, I guess really the critical element here for this group and for the board overall, I want to appreciate your opportunity to allow me to speak on the behalf of the Division of Forestry and the fire program as a whole. There's a lot of great work that we do when it comes to suppression and prescribing and prepping, but I want to give you a little bit of a history or background associated with, the who, why, and what, right? What do we do? Why do we do it? And give you a little picture on where that looks across the state of Wisconsin. To give you an understanding of the role, the responsibility associated with our perspective, what a traditional season would look like, and also, just looking at that quick summary for 2025. And obviously, we're already into 2025 a bit, so give you a picture on what we're experiencing right now and how our staff are managing those current elements. And then provide that partnership, which is an all-important item for us within the wildland firefighting program. I mean, we have some really great partners that we really want to highlight, especially to the board, so you get a good picture on what that looks like and how we navigate and work with those partners, because it's really critical to be successful out on the fire line. And then just highlight kind of a little bit of the things that we do with suppression, prevention, what prevention tools are we utilizing in the current stage for this year. So next slide, next page, if you will. Sorry. What's our mission? What do we look like? What do we look at? It's obviously life, property, and resources. Those are our priorities. Those are the things that we really strive to ensure all of our firefighting staff understand. And that's what they work with. And so when it comes to, let's say, a fire, a response, that firefighter life perspective, our wildland firefighters in response, they're going emergency services. Just like you see these fire trucks always running around. Our trucks are running around in the same capacity. Very, very dangerous just in the simple response. So we take those things in consideration. Obviously, the public, if they're in the path of a fire, strong concerns and considerations that we have associated with that. And we mitigate those while we're on scene, right? We don't understand what's there until we get there. And then also, property, any kind of improvements that are done and communicated on parcels. So that could be a structure, that could be a garage, that could be a home, that could be a mobile home. It could be anything, but we really take those in consideration as a priority, right? So, and then lastly is the resources, the trees, the fields, the other elements that are out there on the landscape. So those are some of the critical elements that I wanted to really address. But where do we get that authority from? That authority comes from statute 26.01. And it defines what a forest fire is. Forest fire is basically anything outside of city village limits from our perspective. And it's basically a grass cut over. It's not just your traditional, what you might perceive to be a forest fire. It can be a grass, it could be in a egg field of sorts. Anything that burns outside of the city villages, that's where our authority comes from, that's how it's defined in there. So it could be a cutover, could have been a forested stand. Very, very broad, if you will, on what that looks like. Then what does that authority mean to us? So in chapter 2611, it gives us authority for all things related to prevention, detection, and suppression. Very big, a lot of duty and responsibility for the department to take on to ensure that those things are being met to the best of our ability. And then we take those things really critically and try to manage those to the best we can. And then even in a bigger part, in the state of Wisconsin, unlike perhaps the western states, we are that lead agency in the state of Wisconsin. I think we work with obviously lots of partners, but we are I guess they have the greatest amount of support or resources to bring to bear on any wildland fire within the state of Wisconsin. Of course, I'll talk a little bit more about our partnerships that we do that help facilitate that as well, but we are probably one of the greatest. We provide a lot of tools, resources as related to creating for the public the fire danger map. We create fire danger for the entire state. Tools, resources, looking at conditions. We develop our own equipment for suppression, as well as we provide a great deal of training associated with that. I think I'm on slide 4. Okay, so where do we work? It's slide 4. It ultimately, that purple shaded area within there, that is where we have protection responsibility. Do I move this?
You can move it, yeah.
All right, I'm sorry, everybody. Technical skill sets here. Oh, it is? Okay, well, I'll keep going. Sorry. In that purple, if you're looking at following along, that purple is where we have DNR protection. So what does that mean? That's where we have resources that are currently pre-positioned, available to respond to initial attack fires. So wildland fires are really critical. We provide that resource in there. What's the white, if you will? That's the cooperative area. That's cooperative where typically fire departments do that response and take care of that. And I'm going to jump into this a little bit more because a lot of our partners are in that purple as well. So U.S. Forest Service, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, tribal memberships, as well as MTE, BIA. They all have some engagement in there, and they have a sense of responsibility in there as well. Not to the magnitude that we have, but it's certainly one of those values added that when we can move forward and work with our partners, we bring a lot of resources to bear on one typical incident, and we help each other out through that cooperative effort. All right, next slide, 5. We're still working on that. Okay. Oh, hey. We're making headway. So the next, I tried to move, but hey, it worked. Okay, thanks. do we have fires? I think this is really critical, and one of those more important things to recognize is we average roughly a little over 860 fires a year, and that average is increasing. That 10-year average is increasing every year because our fires are increasing overall, and I'll go a little bit into the why. But we also have roughly 1,800 fires a year, 1,800 acres, I'm sorry, burned a year. Now, that's a magnitude of big fires, small fires, just a whole different perspective to look at. And just to try to give you that perspective or vision of it. Most of our fires are small, and that's a good thing, right? I mean, we really strive to keep the fires small with these partnerships, our initial attack staff, and we try to make sure everybody gets to them really quick. If you guys can all imagine, much easier to put out a match than it is to put out a 10-acre fire, right? So our goal is to keep them all small and have resources readily available to get there very quickly. And we're very successful with that as well. There's also, as you look at the map, in that white area, that's that cooperative area that I was referring to, where fire departments take that role and responsibility on and do that. We don't have quite the tracking mechanism with those local fire departments quite that yet, but they carry about the same number of fire occurrences that we do, but they have a whole different fuel arrangement and access that we traditionally don't see in these areas that we have DNR protection in. And unfortunately, we do lose about 50 structures a year, but we save about 500 as well. So we do really prioritize that ask and that support mechanism. And I think we really do a really, really good job. Our staff are really keen on that and working with those local fire departments to make sure we do the best possible job. And we pre-plan all this every year. We go into these seasons pre-planning all winter long in preparation for our traditional spring season, and we'll go a little more into that. But what does it look like? What's wildfire trends in Wisconsin? Are we like the West? I think we all heard a little bit about LA, probably this last winter, right? Is Wisconsin like LA? Where do we see a fire like that? You know, there is a difference in fuel types. There's a difference in climate, a difference in wind. You know, those are Santa Ana winds. They're tremendous. They're up to 50, 80 miles an hour and sustaining. That isn't something that we traditionally see here in Wisconsin, but we do see conditions that are very similar, not for the duration that they would have, but for 1 or 2 or 5 days or 10 days out of the year. So those are the days that we really need to strive and be very successful in our initial attack responsibility, or we will see some of those. And in fact, in past, we have seen those fires, giving everything in fall in line, the weather conditions, the winds, the RHs, the temperature, and the fuel arrangements. And our live fuel moisture plays a critical role. So if some of you are, homeowners and you have your backyards and you're burning your leaves, or you try to remove your waste, when they're green, they don't burn well, right? But when they're brown, they burn readily. And so your key component is trying to manage that effectively and try to reduce those likelihoods of those occurring. So, and that's in the spring and in the late summer when they're cured out dead. The other difference that we see and experience is that most of our fires are caused by humans. So, those are really critical to recognize and how we can manage through that. And ultimately, the West is lightning, just inversed. We have lightning fires, but not to the magnitude of the West, and our causes are human cause. So catastrophic fires are certainly a possibility in Wisconsin. I mean, we have averaging, when those conditions are just right, anywhere between 5 to a 10,000 to 15,000 acre fire, numerous homes impacted through those conditions on those right days. So it's really critical to make sure we're on our P's and Q's on those days, of course. And then just due to the conditions, the climate conditions that we're experiencing, the changes, we've been in 2 significant droughts in 23 and 24, and now coming into 25. We've seen a difference of seasonalities. Our differences are different, and it's really having an impact on what our staff need to manage through and how we manage and make sure we have staff available to make sure that happens. So, yep, thank you. So those trends, I think we're next one on. I'm sorry, everyone. Okay, so this is a slide to give us a picture, and I want to go back to 23-24 that led up to 25. So 23-24 was droughty. We worked almost all year round. Our staff, our integrated staff, they don't just do fires, they do forest management, they have a lot of other duty responsibilities. So when we see, like the 23 and 24 season, fire occurrences happening all year round, that really causes stress impact on them, because you can see in this graph, most of our fires occur in the spring, March, April, and May, right? That's the core where we see most of our fires. But with these droughty conditions that we're experiencing, we're seeing these fire, staffing needs requirements occurring more and more all year round. And in fact, record year, right, for 25, we've never had this many fires in January and February ever in the state of Wisconsin. Why? We just didn't have snow, right? I mean, so that was a unique situation. So what did that mean to our firefighters? They started in January and they're already fighting fires. That was normally not until March would you see that for most of our staff. So big change in dynamical changes with our workforce and needing to make those changes. And they're knocking it out of the park, but it is taking its toll in stressors and actually fatigue factors and those things that we all have to be addressing and be concerned with. So where are we? We're 300 plus fires right now. Our average right now is 156 year to date, usually. Acres are 1,500 acres, and we're typically only at 341 so far. This is currently year to date. So we're seeing about over 100% increase year to date fire occurrences. So tremendous amount of more workload out there and staffing requirements for our staff to be readily and available. Just put that out. I'll just touch on the one other thing that's on that slide is definitely that 46% of all of our fires so far are DB related, meaning people burning something in the backyard causing these fires. 19 are caused by equipment, somebody dragging chains or other reasons. So really that human cause factor is really there to have those changes. Fire season 2025 continued. So far, we had 35 fires over 5 acres. The biggest fire, obviously, was a Big Island fire in Green Lake County, yep. And it was a lowland, marshy type, fuel type. It was a little over 800 acres. Significant response to it. Again, this is a difference of fuel types. I mean, it was lower. You have to have equipment that can go across that lower marshy area. So we have to invest in those types of support mechanisms. And then, significant activity with that fire, burned all night long, a lot of support, a lot of cooperation with a lot of other entities managing it. That's the one thing we would do really well. We can manage a lot of people in a very short amount of time, and I'll talk a little bit about our incident management teams and how they function in that capacity as well. So we're still in that drought condition, and I'll show you some slides that relate to that. But our staffing is 30 to 35% increase of what we normally do. So remember, I said that our staff have collateral duties and responsibilities. This causes that much more stressors on them. And so they're increasing that workload to be prepared for wildland fires that they perhaps didn't. We did see some rain, some ice events that we saw in the north, of course, did have some impact, of course, but it'll obviously once it dries out, we're back into it almost immediately. And then in those opportunities, obviously, we take opportunities to do prescribed burning. We do a lot of prescribed burning across the state, mainly a lot in the south, and we actually achieved 126 burns for almost 13,000 acres already. So a lot of good work happening across the state in both the suppression world and prescribed burn world. So what does it look like for next year? Or I mean, sorry, for continuing within this year. So you can see almost half the state is in drought conditions, especially in the north and in the south, the biggest impacts right now. And then you can look to the little graphic to the right. They're forecasting it's going to persist throughout a longer period of time. So we have to mentally prepare ourselves that we're in it for a long haul. It's not going to be, we're probably not going to come out in May and say, well, everything's greened up, we're good to go. We're probably going to see a prolonged aspect of this again. And then if you look at the next slide, you can see that just a quick seasonal outlook of how that would look and where the temperatures are increasing for May. And talked about April, it's a little cooler, but May, June, we're going to see higher temperatures. And then precipitation for April, normal, drier in May, and June, normal, and July, normal. So we're prepping and planning for a long haul into this season again. and it does have its impact on our staff. So what do we have for resources that help, combat some of these incidents and resources? We have our Type 6 engines, so that top left corner. Those are initial attack resources. Those are usually our most qualified people to do initial attack, have command presence when they get there. They take the IC role in command of the incident and assign resources as allocated as needed for each incident. That's usually, they drive these smaller vehicles and they carry water. And if they can do that, about 300 gallons on each of those smaller trucks, and they do what they can. But a lot of times, if the fire is too big, they wait for, I'll talk about the next resources that we use. But the one to the top right, that's a low ground unit. We call them low ground units. They can work very effectively in the marsh. They can go in, I would say, lowland areas. They can't float on water, just to be clear. That doesn't happen. There are some pieces of equipment that do that, though. Our units don't. We have roughly 11 aircraft that we use for detection. And then once they do spot a fire, they sit over the fire and help guide our resources into the fire and provide us intel on where, what's changing, what dynamics, if there's any barriers. So very great asset in the wildfire community for us. The bottom left is our heavy units. We call them heavy units. They're Type 4 engines. They carry about 800 gallons of water, so a little bit more, and they pull that tractor plow that's right next to it in the video, or I'm sorry, in the picture screen there. And that tractor plow is our bread and butter for the state of Wisconsin. It is the key piece of equipment to suppress fires across the state. It's very versatile. It has a lot of tools. It puts a plow furrow in behind it, a mineral soil break where soils can't burn or where the fire won't burn. So extremely, extremely important value added in that capacity. And what's the other most important people is our staff. Our staff in that picture are our most valuable assets as we look at fighting fires and how do they function. And then our incident management teams. We have 3 incident management teams, one in the Northwest, one in the Northeast, and one in the Southwest. Those incident management teams have resources available and make sure those are readily available. And then our last is partnerships. I can't speak highly enough of our partnerships. We have a little over 800 fire departments in the state. We have MOUs with roughly 720 of them, 740 of them. They are extremely supportive and work with us hand in hand in all of our wildland fires. And they do that initial attack with us, and then they'll go back and do suppression or protection for structural protection. So that is probably our key resource partners there. National Guard with their Black Hawk helicopters, another great value asset. When we need them, they bring 660 gallons of water to a fire. They come out of Madison and work usually somewhere up north. So very, very great partnership we have with the Guard. The resource on the top right, they call them water scoopers. We have relationships with Ontario and Manitoba, which actually have those. And we can order them up and order them for some of our fires. They carry about 1,400 gallons of water, and they can skim across lakes and rivers and pick up water and dump it on the fire. So great asset. And then on the bottom left, they're called single engine air tankers. They come seats for short, but they're a great asset to do quick national attack. And then we work with partners. Those usually come from like Minnesota or someplace. If we don't put them on, we don't hire them. And then obviously our federal partners are extreme. That's Forest Service engine sitting there, but we do a lot of partnerships with our federal agencies. I guess I'll rattle them off again, and hopefully I don't forget anybody, but U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Forest Service, BIA, tribal memberships, both MTE and BIA, all great assets within the state of Wisconsin. We have some NGOs that we partnership. TNC is becoming a very strong partner with us. So a lot of partnerships across the state that help us in suppression and prescribed burning. And in Ontario and Manitoba. So those are the 2 CLs. So I went pretty quick. And is there any questions?
I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, question. Go ahead, Patty.
In the graph where you had the fire season starting in January this year, was that all over the state or was it one particular area?
Those are all over the state.
Okay.
So in our protection area,
Yeah.
you saw that we're at our protection, that purple area, that's where those numbers come from. So
Wow.
all those fire occurrences were in that one general location.
Okay.
Well, about almost half the state.
Mhm.
Other
Thank you.
questions, Marcy?
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. For one, we had this presentation or a similar one a few years ago on one of our field trips and showed the great partnerships, but also the discussion about because there's so many human-caused incidents, if there isn't another way to educate with a bit of a push, like you can get out of your fine. I assume they get a fine if they start a fire. Maybe not. If you could take them through an education program about wind speeds and low humidity and everything, give them a bit of an education, because in our neighborhood, we've had the same person start 3, and I'm in the Vernon County where it's not the DNR that gets called, it's volunteers coming out running the hills. So I would make a push for education. And then second is I had a conversation with our state forester, Heather. I had the opportunity to be in Northeast Wisconsin last week after the ice storm. And in Northeast Wisconsin and Northwest as well, we've seen a number of storms move through. There's lots of debris on the ground. Now there's going to be even more with all the broken branches and everything. Is there a big picture, a bigger plan on how to prevent any problems up there? Because I would love to think that, we're not going to get 100-mile-an-hour winds or something, but it just seems like it's just ripe for a big problem up there.
Great question. And we do a lot of education. Back to your very first question. We do, well, I'll just talk a little bit what we're doing this year. We're utilizing some of the gas station, you get gas and a little video comes on.
Yeah.
We're putting a prevention message in there. So if you guys see it, great, awesome. But we also work with social media. And then when it comes to fire danger, we define what that fire danger means. So like if you got a high or a very high or a low or a moderate, doesn't mean you're not, just because you're at moderate doesn't mean you're not going to have a fire. It's just not going to spread that fast away from you. So that education portion is very important. And we work with the our Office of Communication to really strengthen that information and sharing as much as we possibly can. Back to your concern about the blowdown, that is obviously it increased fuel loading on the ground, challenging to get our resources through. That's why dozers are really important in that category. But what we do also, just to, I forgot 2019 might have been the year, but our foresters work with those individual landowners to try to remove that salvage sale, that forested, whatever that is. So try to reduce it as much as we possibly can. But if there's only branches down there, that's a little different. That's not usually merchantable material. So that is a cleanup opportunity. So we did do the survey. We did survey that site from the air. We had some of our forces up there seeing what it would look like. And there are some spots, but not as bad as it perceived it to be, that I thought it was.
Yeah, it was amazing how many sprung back up after the ice came off, but it's still, I think there's going to be branches coming down for a while. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, so the early burning seasons that we're experiencing, are certainly increasing in suppression activities and wildfires, but they're also, and you pointed out, in their opportunity to get more prescribed fire on the ground. We're using prescribed fire for prevention too, or those prescribed burns are doing more habitat management?
Most of our prescribed burns are all habitat management. That we do try to emphasize, take opportunities for these smaller, perhaps impacted communities to do some burning around those locations to reduce that fuel. But the majority of our burning, I'll just say, is purely habitat improvement across the landscape. And even on a forested stand, it's a good silvicultural tool to use to reduce those invasives coming in. So there's lots of uses for fire, but it does run the risk. Obviously, it's an inherited risk that we have to manage effectively, and hence a lot of planning goes into any kind of event like that.
Good, thank you.
Other questions? I have one quick one for you, Jim. With the last few years, the trend toward more development, more structures in the forest, in the less developed parts of the state. It's just increased tremendously. Part of it's just the aging of the population, second homes, retirement homes, but it's also the work at home, being able to work at great distance. People are moving out of the cities and into a lot of these rural areas. Has that changed in any way or complicated your role for wildfire protection and management?
Absolutely. Just to flat out, that increases our risk level. We manage accordingly. But we also have, which I didn't talk about in here, but we have a WUI program, Wild and Urban Interface program, that as we see those areas coming up, we have 3 WUI specialists in the state of Wisconsin that work with those local communities to reduce fuel loading. We have a grant cycle for them to help facilitate. We encourage them to do the work, but we provide a source of seed money for them to do that work. And our WUI specialists are actively reaching out to these communities and seeing if they can actually improve or they can, get that community in base. It could be a lake association. It could be a full-on county. It has a different variations, but yes, to your point, we try to take a very proactive approach to minimize those potential risks and have those communities work within that and try to achieve that. Reduce those fuel loading considerations and impacts to those homes.
Other questions, comments? Thank you very much, Jim. A very important and timely presentation. It's that time of year.
Be careful.
Yeah.
It's gonna burn them.
Okay, that's it for our informational items. We'll move on to item 7, Department Secretaries Matters, retirement recognition. No retirements this time.
Good job, Karen. Keep them in.
I'll take all the credit.
Item 7B, acts of the Department Secretary, real estate transactions. Any questions on that? Department Secretaries Matters.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks you guys for being here today and for engaging on all the various topics. I just wanted to engage as we start planning for future board meetings to put a couple things on the informational item section that sort of, align with our mission of clean air, clean water, outdoor recreation opportunities, and provide some briefings and work with you to provide some briefings at a high level on sort of the trends we're seeing across those areas, the work the DNR does in our science and our commitment to addressing some of those issues, where the challenges are, maybe what the changing landscape is, so that you guys have a better sense of what the state of air quality, water quality, outdoor recreation opportunities are here in the state, and the challenges that the DNR faces and our partners might face in terms of trying to address those things. So I just want to work with you and the board members in that interest area and just try to get your feedback and your guidance on, the work that we're doing and trying to, the big problems that we're trying to tackle and how we might start approaching them in the future. So just appreciate your engagement early on here as I sort of work through. I'll just say right here that, I'm super proud of the work that we do. I've only been on the job for 10 weeks, but incredible. Every day I learned something really interesting. The fire briefing that I got from James earlier was amazing, and I just thought it was really interesting to bring that to the board. Like, what is happening across the landscape? How is the fire season changing? How is that changing the way that we deploy resources and people to address those issues, how we expand our partnerships? I think that's a really important topic and want to bring that across some of the other big topics that we face for your interest.
Wonderful opportunity. I look forward to it.
Great.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Bill. That's it.
That's it. Okay. Well, then we will move on to board members' matters. Let's start with Patty down on this end of the table. Patty, board members' matters.
First, I want to thank Marcy in that she has been a great mentor coming onto this board and answering questions and welcoming, and I will miss you. As far as board matters, the question came up a lot today, how do we keep water clean? And, it appears that we are kind of watching water get dirty with wakeboarding. And I just think we need to dig into that before it becomes a real problem. I just don't understand enough about it. And, you listen to the manufacturer side and then the lake owner side, and there's just so much there. But what we don't want is years from now, a bunch of people going, well, they were talking about it and now nobody can use our lakes. So I feel like we need to really kind of broaden the scope of what we're looking at. I mean, everyone wants solutions, but it's like, whose problem is it? Is it the manufacturers? Is it the boat owners? Is it people? You know, whose problem is it? And we need to learn more about it. So I'd really like to see us kind of look at that topic, because we're already looking at PFAS and the problems that has caused. And all of a sudden here we have a problem that is gaining momentum. That not a meeting has went by since I've been on the board that the wake boat topic has not been in front of us. And I think we need to address it and make recommendations on what should be done. And I'll miss you. That's it.
Thank you, Patty. Deb?
Thank you, Chair Smith. I won't miss Marcy. Because we know that she's never going to really leave us. You know, her little good angel will be sitting on our shoulder asking those questions. So really appreciate just the relationship that I've had with you thus far. A couple things from me. Attending the State of the Tribes address was absolutely fabulous. I really appreciated that opportunity, even though some of us were chasing around trying to find a place to watch it. Deputy Secretary, Little, correct? Right, I know, that's what I was channeling to. But we actually watched it upstairs here, and that was great. Couple of other things. I've attended, Mitch Wallace, who we saw earlier today with his family, invited me from the governor's office to attend a budget session with the governor in Port Washington, which is where I taught for 36 years. And also did a listening session with my new senator, Haber Sinekin. And I really encourage all of us to participate in those listening sessions, because I am personally very fearful that if we don't really stay strong as a state, especially on the issues that are near and dear to the DNR and this board, we're going to regret it. So that's all I have to say. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Deb. Doug?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, thanks, Marcy. So have a good whatever you're gonna do. But I'm assuming we'll see you here. You'll probably hear from me frequently, so. So hopefully you're successful going forward. So a couple things. One is, if you watched the Facebook much, I think it was broadcast other public venues, but the governor did a release on notification of the spring fishing that's coming up for our northern relatives. The Ojibwe bands will be starting those soon. Ice out is happening slowly, but it's happening. So that fishing will start happening, and it was a nice piece that the governor did, just noticing that and asking for cooperation and everybody getting along up there. That's very important to them while they practice their cultural and subsistence activities during that spring harvest. It's significant and historic. So it was interesting, and it just reflect that same sentiment that the governor did, that that goes off well and everybody enjoys a good spring fishing season up there, and everybody gets along. So the other one is a Menominee event. It's that time of year for our sturgeon ceremony again. That's coming up on Saturday. That's an annual event. I think I did the same thing last year. So this Saturday, our cooperative agreement with DNR is excellent there. So the fish got moved on Monday and Tuesday, and the ceremonial fish come on Monday, and we give them to our prep guys that prepare those fish for the feast. And that feast ceremony powwow starts at noon on Saturday. I brought some posters and they're in the car. I wanted to bring them in, but I'll grab them afterwards. If folks want to take one, you're welcome to them. 12 till 6 the grand entry is at 12. That's the one really you'd like to see if you get a chance. And then the ceremonial activities that occur throughout the day are worth seeing. And of course, the feast is at the end of the day. That's something you want to come try. Really good. The other piece to that is a cooperative agreement with DNR to move fish. So the tribe and DNR have an MOU now that's been longstanding since 2011. So during the week, they moved 109 fish. Besides the ceremonial ones that go to the feast, those fish go out into the river. So they're moved around the dams, released right in Kashina, near Kashina Falls, in hopes that that they spawn in the spring. So that's those are my updates. And again, if you're interested, open to the public, welcome to come. We'd be happy to have you attend. So that's it.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
And good luck and best wishes on your celebration coming up.
Thanks.
Robin.
Yeah, so Marcy, you're not getting off the hook this quick. No. I just also appreciate you, what I consider to be your mentorship. And I'm typically not one shy at asking questions, so I value the fact that you showed us many opportunities in which to do that effectively, and I will try to learn from you. And I am not deleting your cell phone from my my contact list. So thank you. I really appreciate your thoughtfulness into so many different topics. So thank you. I also was at the Lakes conference and learned a lot. You know, our lakes are such an economic driver for our state. And I kind of feel a little disheartened that there isn't more we can do or are doing with respect to protecting them, and a little frustration as well. I think that there's continued efforts that need to take place, and look forward to helping see that those come to fruition, whatever they might be, whether they're educational or regulatory, whatever. I also wanted to mention that the Wisconsin Conservation Congress hearings are coming up, I believe, next week. And I encourage folks to, yes, the 14th, to go to, one in your county or in your area. It's always really interesting to kind of see the local folks and hear their issues and concerns. And then also that the convention is coming up in May, and that's another opportunity to really get to know our partners within that organization. So just put in some words of encouragement for participating there.
Thank you, Robin. Rachel?
All right, well, not to be a broken record, but I also wanted to thank Marcy in using a lot of those same words that everyone else has used, with being, the first word, that amazing mentor, where you've allowed us to grow and learn in my short period. And it's sad that there isn't going to be more, but I hope you look at the agenda before each meeting and send us a list of questions. Do it like that. But yeah, the poignant questions with care, intellect, and compassion has always came through. So much appreciation for all your service to the board and to the state, and look forward to see where your next chapter brings you. Then I was also going to bring up the spring hearings. That it's a really great opportunity for public input, and as a board member attending, learned so much from the stories and the perspectives of the participants. So encourage all the public to participate in that, because it's a really good way to engage in those discussions while also hearing what other people think too. And then just emphasizing that spring's probably the most exciting time of the year, at least for me. Feels like the world's coming back alive, and so the sun feels different, the wind feels different on your skin than in the winter, and all those senses that just come alive. And then also want to encourage people to go out and experience that, the sights, the smells, all the birds, the migratory birds in the air, the first spring ephemeral plants popping up. That first skunk cabbage came to mind, and all of the other foods and everything that's associated with spring, but also enjoying it while observing. See what you see what you don't see, be curious and ask why. but do it with appreciation and with respect. And then one other thing that I wanted to bring up, well, actually, I have a couple on here, was I'll bring it up now and maybe then I'll drop it, but I would think it'd be cool if we could look into having an app for the state DNR. Other states have it. It's a little tricky for people that want to explore public lands if you don't have app like Onyx or something to show you where those are. Some of them come up on Google. But otherwise, if you're just using the DNR website, they're PDF documents, and if you go off of that, map, it's like a plat book. But I think there'd be other resources in addition to the maps. People I've talked to want to know when these hearings are, but it's not, if you can get the emails and follow them and put them on your calendar, but maybe there'd be an option for a calendar. I think I've brainstormed on this numerous times, and now I can maybe not think about this when I go to sleep at night, but, also getting, the Go Wild has been really good, but, there just would be a lot of opportunities to make DNR resources and information more accessible to the public. And I know that there's cost and time, but I know other states have it as well, and I think it may be worthwhile. So I just wanted to throw that out there. My last plug was for the Natural Resources Foundation field trips. Those have been, their booklet is out and I've read it, and there's a lot of really cool opportunities and experiences out there. So, and then the last one, I guess, was watch out for the farmers. This is spring planting time. Everyone's out there. And so that's my little plug to go slow on the road and be patient with the farmers. That's it.
Thank you, Rachel. Marcy,
Oh, I was afraid he wasn't going to call on me.
I was going to get to you. I saved it for last.
Yeah. All right. Well, I wrote it down. I know I stand between you and lunch, but what an experience. Yes, so I did not request reappointment, and my term is up May 1st. So this is my final meeting. But first, I want to thank the incredibly dedicated DNR staff throughout the state, from the wardens in the Northeast who took me to meet bear hunters in the Nicolet Forest, to the energetic biologists who got my butt out into a bird blind at 4:30 a.m. to watch sharptails dance. And the air quality team who timed our field trip perfectly a couple years ago to learn firsthand how important clean air is. From around the state to the crew I know in my own backyard, we are fortunate to have dedicated professionals working so hard on behalf of the resources and the residents and our visitors. Please thank them every chance you get. I've learned so much through this experience and hope each of you and the next appointee for my seat take full advantage of the briefings, the tours, and any other opportunities. As I thought about what this experience has meant, I looked at the NRB history page and a write-up by one of my former UW Stevens Point professors, got to get Stevens Point in there, right? And former NRB member herself, Christine Thomas. In a 1991 paper, she wrote about the creation and evolution of the board. Her concluding statement is, public controversy has often shaken enthusiasm for the citizen board. However, the concept has long been enduring. It was born of the efforts of Wisconsin's early academics and scientists, pioneers of the Wisconsin idea. The efforts of the progressives nurtured the idea. It was resurrected by citizen conservationists who believed that the resources of the state were being abused by political patronage, and it is sustained today by citizens who believe that they have better access to the decision-making process through this arrangement than they do through other institutional arrangements. So a great deal has changed since she wrote that in 1991, and a great deal has changed since February of 2020 when I got appointed to fill Fred Clark's seat. The change I witnessed in my 5 years on the board was the seismic shift of being confirmed unanimously by the Senate in 2020 after very congenial meetings with senators from the Natural Resources Committee, led by former Senator Rob Coles. At my first board meeting, the members were very welcoming. Then we met remotely for months due to COVID. Then it got really ugly. but you can watch the videos to learn the rest. It's no secret that I vehemently disagreed with a former chair staying beyond his term while a very qualified appointee waited. I also witnessed two very qualified appointees get dragged through a process that was demeaning, demoralizing, and nothing short of bullying by some leaders in the outdoor community and some of those same senators who had treated me fairly, even though we were all appointed by Governor Evers. What changed their tone, I don't know. But it sure wasn't fair to volunteer citizens willing to serve. So two in particular, Sandra Dinas was incredibly qualified to serve and represent the far north from her home in Ashland. As a hunter, fishing enthusiast, trapper, and especially as a teacher who has introduced hundreds of students for 20+ years to environmental issues and outdoor opportunities. In addition to countless community efforts, her role as a high school teacher is amazing. We lost out by not having her share her knowledge in every action we've taken since the Senate rejected her nomination. I truly miss her and our monthly conversations on a wide range of issues. And from the Southeast, Sharon Adams, a soft-spoken appointee of Milwaukee. I will never forget our tour of green spaces in Milwaukee when the head of the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewage District gave her a bear hug when we got off the bus at the green space and announced to everyone that Sharon had done more for lead abatement and water quality in Milwaukee County than anyone he knew. She didn't speak often, but when she did, it was thoughtful and with purpose. And her rejection was equally a loss to this board. But of course, you all are awesome members and you've learned quickly, so I have faith. I've also witnessed 3 secretary appointees in just 5 years. It's tough to learn to steer this big ship with that much changeover, but Karen, I'm so impressed with your knowledge and dedication already. I wish you all the best and know you will learn to navigate quickly. And the good news is we still have the opportunity for significant citizen involvement in this state. Opportunities at every Natural Resource Board meeting, the Wisconsin Conservation Congress spring meetings, and through their questionnaires. We have citizen deer advisory councils, stakeholder groups for every rule or plan or program, and public hearings galore. So my final board member matter is to ask each of you and the staff and anyone else listening to continue the incredible history of this state for what Professor Thomas referred to as this arrangement, the NRB. We're not elected, we're not getting rich off of it, and there's a significant time commitment. But from start to finish, every board member has taken the citizen input to heart and done what we could within the board's authority to move issues forward. So thank you for this opportunity, and most important, thank you, Chairman Bill Smith. The other transformation I've witnessed is that you have brought respect, dignity, and openness to all citizens back to this board. I truly appreciate your patience, leadership, and friendship. All right, everyone, keep up the good work. If you're ever in the Kickapoo Valley, look me up. And as I've closed every April meeting since I've been here, I wish you a happy Earth Day, and please get out and enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcy. That was a very heartfelt message and based on personal experience. Powerful, powerful words and quite a challenge. I also want to express my appreciation back to you for being a partner through this thing. We've been here for several years and worked together on a number of things. Your energy level is unmatched. You always do your homework. You ask very insightful questions, and you have the stiffest back in the room. And those are all attributes. They brought an awful lot of value to the board. So today is sort of a mixed feeling of a little bit of sadness and remorse, but also an awful lot of celebration for everything you've brought to the board and knowing that you're going to move forward into your next adventure with the same level of energy and the same commitment you showed here. So very simply, thank you. Yes.
I know, I didn't
please do.
take my opportunity to thank you because I didn't want to get ahead of everybody at this table. But thank you, Marcy, on behalf of the department and myself. I know we got a little time to spend yesterday together, and I'm really thankful for that and just the engagement that I've had over a short period of time. You're very thoughtful and very committed, and those are the types of people that we need to move organizations forward. They're going to evolve over time, and we're going to have different challenges over time. But without the commitment of people like you, really digging in, asking good questions, pushing us to be better, we'll never evolve to be better. So thank you very much for your service. Really appreciate it. Back to you, Bill.
Thank you, Karen. My last comment before I ask for a motion, board members are reminded we have a appointment in the back room here for a photo. So please swing by and we'll get that done before we leave. With that, I think we're ready for a motion to adjourn.
I'd make that motion.
There's Marcy, thank you. And I see a second from Doug. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries and we are adjourned.
Come back for all of your celebrations.